decía, nos dicen en YouTube, estamos en Lakeland, muchas lluvias y viento fuerte. Nos dicen también vivo en Palmetto, mucho viento, muy fuerte, mucha lluvia, feo se ve esto.
Sí,
También Claire Mel no está tan mal por ahora.
sí,
Em, Nos preguntan cómo está la situación en Tampa.
sí.
Nos preguntan también de la parte de Ocala y seguimos recibiendo estos comentarios. Nosotros vamos a seguir comentando y a seguir leyendo sus preguntas. En este momento me parece que Val tiene que hacer una actualización y me voy a quedar yo con
Sí,
ustedes.
me retiro por un ratito y enseguida vuelvo, ¿sí? Vamos a hacer con nuestra presentadora de noticias, Paola Zuro, un pequeño apariencia en nuestro noticiero en inglés que están en estos momentos, han estado al aire sin parar de corrido y bueno, vamos a saludar a nuestra comunidad hispana e invitarlos a que se conecten acá al streaming. Así que en unos minutos nada más regresamos. Pero
Perfecto.
Jerry se queda.
Aquí me quedo yo con esta actualización y preguntan qué categoría nos tocará en el área de poll, que nos preguntan en YouTube y hablamos de las categorías en este momento todavía es un fuerte huracán que estamos pronosticando que todavía no está, se está desorganizando definitivamente, ha disminuido un poco esta intensidad, pero estamos viendo cómo también este ojo está de lo compacto que era cuando estaba en el Golfo de México, ha perdido mucha de esa organización. Quiero rescatar también lo que decía Val de esto dentro del ojo del huracán. Normalmente se escucha como que si el viento para de repente. Si usted de repente no escucha nada, si usted de repente no siente, no escucha la lluvia, no escucha los vientos, es muy probable que parte de del centro de este sistema esté pasando por usted, pero seguido de eso viene el otro extremo del ojo del huracán, así que no salga por las próximas horas, porque continúa siendo un sistema muy peligroso, un sistema que está generando mucha agua en las costas del más al suroeste. Cuidado con la marejada ciclónica y hay que hablar también de en qué momento va a ser la marea alta. Esto, cuando regrese Val Simpson, vamos a hablar un poquito más de estos tiempos, de la marea baja, de la marea alta y de los impactos que puedan tener estas áreas en las que se pronosticaba una marejada ciclónica de hasta 13 pies, sobre todo con este cambio que tuvo un poquito hacia el sur. Estamos viendo que este ojo en este momento, la pared del ojo empieza de poco a poco entrar precisamente en el condado de Sarasota. Esta área en la que va a simple vista parece ser que es donde está haciendo esta entrada a tierra. Obviamente vamos a recibir un boletín del Centro Nacional de Huracanes confirmando toda esta información. Lo están haciendo ahora cada hora. Entre más nos acerquemos al momento del toque a tierra oficial, el Centro Nacional de Huracanes emite un boletín cada hora. En este momento está soplando con vientos de categoría, tiene 120 millas por hora. Eh, Estamos completamente en vivo monitoreando este huracán y vamos a tomar un par de preguntas más en lo que regresa Val Simpson para hablar un poquito más de estos impactos que continúan en la bahía de Tampa y hablar de la marejada ciclónica, que esperamos este efecto que suceda desde Sarasota hasta esta área de Fort Myers. Y vamos a leer un par de comentarios más. Hemos estado leyendo a usted que nos acompaña a través de YouTube. Nos dice Lisandra Lam a través de Facebook, estoy en el área de la Armenia y Slide y la lluvia es constante y el viento muy fuerte. También Mayra Montiel nos comentaba tempranito desde Costa Rica: Dios proteja las zonas donde tocará, Dios tiene el control, estamos orando por ustedes. También acaba esto es una alerta inmediata que tenemos. El Servicio Meteorológico Nacional aquí en la Bahía de Tampa ha emitido también me parece que esta es una extensión del aviso de inundación repentina para partes de los condados Pinellas y Hillsborough. Esto incluye a las áreas, a las ciudades de Tampa, a la ciudad de Saint Petersburg, a la ciudad de Clearwater. Y quiero referirme un poquito más al mapa para hablar, en específico de estas zonas. Y sí, definitivamente no es solo para Hillsborough, no es solo para Pinellas, también esto se extiende para los condados de Pasco. Ojo a usted que se encuentra en Pasco, en Hernando, también se extiende hasta el área llegando a Citrus, y también para el área de los condados del interior, del condado del interior, más al interior de nuestra área de la bahía, que es el condado Polk. También está aviso de inundación repentina para esta área del condado Manatee, donde se aproxima este ojo del huracán. Hablamos de Bradenton, Piney Point, Duet, Balm. Dover está en esta área de inundación repentina. Y déjenme explicar también un poquito lo que hablamos de esta terminología de inundación repentina. Esta lluvia puede provocar que cuerpos de agua, los acumulados de lluvia, el suelo saturado, puede que ese suelo ya no aguante más con esta lluvia constante. Si bien es cierto, en muchas áreas la lluvia no son tormentas lo que están cayendo, pero ha sido constante. Por lo menos desde las 6 de la mañana en el condado Pinellas ha estado cayendo esta lluvia constante, y ha sido una lluvia que no ha parado durante todo el día. Entonces, esto satura los suelos y el agua tiene que ir para algún lado, y es cuando el agua empieza a subir. Ahora, este sistema continúa arrojando más agua en forma de lluvia. Está llevando acompañada de esta lluvia, están los vientos. Pero si nos enfocamos solo en el fenómeno de la lluvia, anticipábamos que al norte, y precisamente al norte del ojo del huracán Milton, todos estos condados que mencioné, estas áreas, iban a recibir lo más crudo de la lluvia, y anticipábamos algunos acumulados de hasta 18 pulgadas localizadas en estas ciudades, en estos condados. Y también, a medida se empiece a entrar este ojo, va a empezar a desplazarse, perdón, va a empezar a desplazarse tierra adentro, y va a entrar como un huracán todavía dentro de la península de la Florida, un huracán tal vez de categoría 1, categoría 2. Me parece que está disminuyendo la intensidad. Me gustaría esperar al boletín del Centro Nacional de Huracanes, que estamos nada más a 12 minutos me parece que lo podrían emitir antes, y lo han estado haciendo de esa manera, para ver lo que reflejan en estos boletines. En el último vimos un cambio de la posición, y por eso hablábamos del ojo, que estaba aproximándose esta pared del ojo de este huracán en esta área de Sarasota. Vamos a ver, estamos en Brooksville, dice Diana Román, y los vientos son muy fuertes y lluvias demasiadas. Estamos aterrados, y esto es uno de los fenómenos de los que hablábamos: el ruido, la sobrecarga sensorial que íbamos a tener, porque estamos hablando de vientos con poder de derribar árboles, de derribar postes de luz. Hablando de la luz, hay muchas áreas que empezaron a verse afectadas ya a través de la Bahía de Tampa con apagones, y desde temprano empezamos a ver algunos apagones, algunos de estos cortes de electricidad relacionados con algunos de los avisos de tornado, y con estos tornados que puede ser que impactaron parte de la red eléctrica, sobre todo de los condados del interior. Vamos a tener un poquito una mejor idea. Voy a tener esas cifras en vivo de los usuarios, de la cantidad de usuarios afectados en las diferentes regiones de nuestra área, porque desde temprano ya muchos usuarios nos reportaban. Veíamos también los reportes de las compañías eléctricas que reportaban miles, en algunos casos decenas de miles de usuarios afectados con cortes de energía eléctrica. Y si estamos hablando, Val mencionaba un lapso de 12 horas para que este sistema, desde el momento en el que entre a tierra el ojo y salga por la costa este de la península de la Florida, va a ser un lapso aproximadamente entre 10 y 12 horas. Quiero hablar también de esto que nosotros estábamos anticipando de la medianoche. Esto se aceleró sobre todo en la velocidad de traslación, y con el cambio un poquito de la trayectoria hacia el sur, con la aceleración, estos dos factores combinados han acelerado este toque a tierra, y me parece que va a suceder en la próxima hora, sino en los próximos, puede ser en la próxima, son las 7:51 de la noche, hoy 9 de octubre. Estamos hablando que en la próxima hora, en algún momento de la próxima hora, podríamos estar diciendo oficialmente y dando la noticia que el ojo del huracán Milton está tocando en algún área determinada del condado Sarasota. Esto es lo que vemos a simple vista en este radar Doppler que tenemos a nuestra disposición. Quiero ver si tenemos también a disposición este me parece que no está actualizado. Vamos a ver, estos son también los estimados de lluvia. Este es nuestro radar Max Defender que nos muestra en este momento los estimados de acumulados de lluvia. Vemos esa área en color, digamos, rosado, con la parte blanca en medio. La parte rosada refleja entre 6 y 9 pulgadas de lluvia. La parte central, que es, digamos, donde se encuentra este ojo del huracán, y que se puede extender desde esta área de Sarasota, desde esta área del condado Manatee, Sarasota. Lo veíamos entrando en pronósticos anteriores, en imágenes anteriores, atravesando más o menos a través del corredor de la I-4, afectando algunos lugares, como por ejemplo Lakeland, que lo vemos ahí, que ya podría empezar a las 7:53, que es refleja este mapa la hora exacta en este momento. Lakeland con algunos estimados de acumulados de lluvia de entre 6 y 9 pulgadas. Vamos a ver algunos de estos estimados también de 12 a 15 pulgadas o más, y esto va definitivamente en acuerdo, en consenso con el estimado del Centro Nacional de Huracanes. Y quiero recordar también que el Centro Nacional de Huracanes ha sido muy conservador en su estimado de totales de lluvia, pero vemos en esta área del condado Pinellas, sobre todo en el área sur del condado Pinellas. Bueno, vemos en este mismo momento estas áreas. Esta es la que quería ver. Veíamos algunos estimados de 10 pulgadas, 9 pulgadas en esta parte sur, sobre todo en el área de St. Pete. Y vemos en este mapa también el riesgo potencial de marejada ciclónica que se extiende desde el área de Bradenton, siendo un poco más severo para el área de Sarasota, para esa área de Osprey. Y también entrando a esta abertura que se conoce como Charlotte Harbor, que incluye esta área de Punta Gorda, y en este mapa no lo podemos apreciar de buena manera, pero se extiende este potencial de marejada ciclónica de 3 a 6 pies, el color amarillo, de 6 a 9 pies, la parte en anaranjado, y de 9 a 12 pies en esa parte, en ese puntito que vemos ahí cerca de la palabra Osprey, de 9 a 12 pies de marejada ciclónica. Lo que les iba a compartir es que también este efecto, por lo menos de 3 a 6 pies, se extiende hasta el área de Fort Myers. Así que si usted se encuentra en cualquier área de la costa, tenga mucho cuidado, sobre todo si usted va a salir el día de mañana, porque es un riesgo que esta agua haga su entrada a medida que el ojo continúe girando, a medida que este sistema continúa girando y empiece a arrojar toda esta agua tierra adentro. Es algo de lo que hablábamos que podría ser un impacto devastador. Hablábamos en su momento, hace 48 horas, la historia era diferente cuando teníamos este pronóstico de este sistema entrando precisamente por la bahía de Tampa, que no fue el caso, y quiero referirme a esta gráfica. Me parece que han sido alrededor de 10, 15 millas hacia el sur, y de hecho nos acaba de llegar la actualización del Centro Nacional de Huracanes de las 8 de la noche, y dice que el huracán Milton está muy cerca de de tocar tierra en la costa del centro oeste de la Florida. Ellos mencionan todavía el riesgo mortal de la marejada ciclónica, los vientos dañinos y el riesgo de inundaciones repentinas y el riesgo de la lluvia. Los riesgos, las amenazas no han terminado. Estamos viendo los embates crudos de este sistema, sobre todo en los condados más al sur, en el área en el área más al norte, en cuanto a lluvia y en cuanto a vientos. Pero también estamos con este riesgo de la marejada ciclónica, acompañado de vientos y lluvia, los tres factores determinantes en esta área del ojo del huracán, que según los pronósticos que teníamos, sobre todo de estos conos, de estos modelos de espagueti, lo mostraban atravesando el estado de la Florida en este corredor de la Interestatal 4, atravesando áreas como Lakeland, áreas de Plant City, Lakeland, moviéndose incluso afectando como un huracán, sí degradado, pero todavía un huracán entre categoría 1 y 2. Ha bajado la cantidad, la intensidad de los vientos, y esto es otra cosa que me gustaría analizar en esta actualización. Dice que en este momento se encuentra a 20 millas. Este ojo del huracán se encuentra a solo 20 millas al suroeste de Sarasota, Florida. Y esto según el último boletín del Centro Nacional de Huracanes, el último boletín completo que hemos recibido, y está haciendo, para ponerlo en perspectiva también, si usted nos acompaña desde el centro de la Florida, está a 130 millas al suroeste de Orlando. 130 millas al suroeste de Orlando y solamente 20 millas al oeste-suroeste de Sarasota. Para ponerlo en perspectiva también la distancia, estamos hablando de St. Petersburg a Tarpon Springs. Esas son 20 millas, un estimado más o menos de 20 millas, la longitud del condado Pinelas. Y me gustaría que nos acompañara en este análisis que tenemos de las 8 de la noche con este boletín completo. Está conmigo Vladimir Kislinger. Vladimir, nuevamente bienvenido
Gracias, Gerardo.
a la transmisión. Ya nos empiezan a reportar de diferentes puntos de nuestra área más al
Así
norte
es.
que esta intensa lluvia, estos intensos vientos no paran. Es una experiencia que está siendo aterradora para muchas personas y que nosotros hemos sentido, eh, quiero utilizar esta palabra también, que hemos tenido la fortuna en el área del centro de Tampa, porque lo que se pronosticaba para esta área era catastrófico. Era un pronóstico que podía cambiar el panorama, que podría cambiar como conocemos o como, el área, y hemos tenido la fortuna de que el impacto directo y también quiero hacer la aclaración que ha disminuido en categoría, está con vientos sostenidos máximos de 120 millas por hora. Esto todavía es un huracán poderoso.
Así es, pero es una gran noticia. Cada milla que deja digamos, de potencia, que disminuye, es un motivo para celebrar de alguna manera. Pero no sé si Gerardo, un poco más, hace minutos, si tuviste oportunidad de retratar un poco lo que el gobernador y su equipo de emergencia retrataba. Ya se reportan al menos 125 viviendas destruidas.
Wow.
Las propias autoridades ya lo dijeron. Incluso algo que me tocó aprender del equipo de emergencia del gobernador, algo que me quedó, digamos, muy fuertemente en mi mente, fue hablar de aquellos que están en sus casas, que no evacuaron, y incluso darles recomendaciones como esta. Yo no lo había pensado. Si usted está en una vivienda de un solo piso y esa vivienda no tiene orden de evacuación y probablemente no sea una zona de inundación, lo más recomendable es que usted se vaya a la parte más baja de la vivienda. Es decir, lo más cercano del piso que usted esté va a ser lo mejor. Ahora, si esa vivienda está ubicada en una zona de inundación, usted tiene que pensar qué tan alto puede llegar dentro de su vivienda. Fíjense qué interesante, algo que uno normalmente no lo piensa, y las autoridades en este momento, hace menos de 15 minutos, lo estaban diciendo a través de esta transmisión conjunta con el gobernador Ron DeSantis. Incluso se referían a aquellos que tuvieran viviendas de 2 pisos. Decía, mira, para aquellos que están en viviendas de 2 pisos siempre es conveniente otra vez estar en la parte más baja del segundo piso en el caso de que sea inundación. Y la respuesta otra vez es porque no solamente se quiere evitar que pueda haber algún tipo de riesgo con respecto a conexiones en el caso de que haya agua, sino también cualquier tipo de proyectil que pueda romper una ventana en el caso que no haya sido cerrada. Y fíjense que también hace apenas unos segundos o minutos estuve conversando con una persona que se encuentra en un hotel en Sarasota, muy cerca de la playa, y comentaba cómo siente la vibración, ¿no? Algo que no sentimos ni Gerardo ni yo aquí en el estudio, un estudio muy bien, digamos, unas instalaciones muy bien construidas, pero en muchos de estos hoteles de paso, muchas personas se quedaron allí, son construidos bajo los códigos de Florida, muchos de ellos son nuevos y eso es muy positivo, pero aún así sienten, en este preciso momento están sintiendo ese famoso silbido que deja, es lo que retrata a la gente que habla con nosotros, un silbido que te deja el viento del huracán Milton, y aparte de ese silbido, pues también el tema de la vibración que se siente en este tipo de construcciones que son fundamentalmente de madera. Entonces el gobernador, palabras más, palabras menos, y su equipo han dicho, estamos listos para la reconstrucción, estamos listos para nuestros equipos de emergencia. Destacaron que hay 3 fuerzas especiales de operativos, una de Virginia, una de Ohio y una de Miami. Miami tienen una experticia enorme en este tipo de operaciones de rescate, ya están listos para salir a ayudar a la gente en el momento que se pueda hacer. Hablan ya del día posterior a este huracán para medir qué tan fuerte ha sido el daño, pero como les digo, ya de manera prematura, ya apenas entrando el ojo del huracán por Sarasota, que Gerardo les estaba dando este comentario, pues ya se reportan más de 100 viviendas destruidas.
Es la parte tal vez... vivimos diferentes fases con los huracanes, Vlad. la anticipación que empieza a generar ansiedad y la desesperación, el no saber, eso nos carcome.
Así es.
Y la parte más dura que nos toca retratar también a nosotros como medio de comunicación es los daños que dejan en diferentes, y sabemos que vamos a tener que retratar los impactos, los daños en una comunidad que ya estaba, que todavía se está levantando del huracán Helene, pero que ahora ha recibido los impactos de este nuevo sistema.
Eso es así.
Y vamos a salir a las calles a retratar me parece que también cuando sea seguro volar, vamos a hacer una evaluación con nuestro helicóptero, con nuestro Eagle 8 HD. Seguramente lo vamos a tener en el aire cuando sea seguro volar. Y vamos a hacer este mismo, es parte de este antes, durante y después de la tormenta, y me parece que es una de las partes más difíciles.
Sin duda. Y quiero aprovechar, Gerardo, porque, digamos, tu alcance, el cariño que te tiene a ti, nuestra comunidad digital es enorme. Quiero aprovechar que Gerardo me acompañe en este momento para ofrecerles algo. Nosotros no nos quedamos solamente con retratar, nosotros llegamos mucho más allá. Si ustedes viven en los condados de la Bahía de Tampa, espero que nunca estén pasando por una situación complicada, pero si, digamos, por desgracia, les toca vivir una situación en la que han tenido, digamos, que ha llegado a males mayores este huracán, no teman en escribirnos a través de nuestras redes sociales, que nosotros estamos aquí para apoyarlos también, reconstrucción de sus viviendas, apoyarlos de distintas maneras, contactarlos con las autoridades. Nosotros estamos aquí para servirles. Gerardo es el primero, nuestra cara digital es Gerardo Sierra, y uno de vez en cuando se colea y se sienta aquí para compartir con él, pero aprovechando que ustedes lo conocen también, quiero que sepan eso. Basta que ustedes nos escriban, no solamente ir a tampahoy.com, donde tenemos un apartado donde se habla de tips, ustedes pueden colocar, enviar un email, nos va a llegar a nosotros, a más nadie, nos va a llegar a nosotros, o escribirnos a través de nuestras redes sociales, @tampahoy. En todos lados estamos, en Facebook, en Instagram, en YouTube, en TikTok, en todos lados, y yo quiero ofrecer esta plataforma porque nosotros hemos sido también vínculos para alegría también. Dentro de grandes tragedias también hemos sido vínculos para la reconstrucción, para el futuro, para la esperanza, y no quiero que eso deje de serlo. Yo quiero que ya a partir de mañana, cuando nos toque salir a retratar lo que ha ocurrido, ustedes sepan que cuentan con un equipo que está aquí para caminar con ustedes y con una familia, porque al fin y al cabo nosotros como hispanos somos una familia. No importa si yo me encargo de estar detrás de un micrófono, Gerardo también, nuestros padres están haciendo X o Y, o ustedes desde allí, todos somos una gran familia, y creo que es el momento para demostrar cómo apoyándonos entre todos tenemos la oportunidad de salir adelante de situaciones tan delicadas como estas que nadie espera y que nos une a todos en torno a algo que, pues, digamos, nos tiene muy preocupados.
Y me parece que tú has dado justo en el clavo, en algo, Vlad, la comunidad hispana en los Estados Unidos, en Florida y focalizándolo más en la Bahía de Tampa. Obviamente una de las razones que nos une más es el idioma, y nosotros estamos tratando de llevarle toda esta información útil para que usted tome las decisiones que tiene que tomar, y a veces es difícil estas actualizaciones que tenemos que dar, que son de vida o muerte, pero que nosotros no vamos a estar tratando de modificarlo solo para que se escuche bonito. Nosotros compartimos lo que tenemos que compartir.
Sin edulcorarlo.
Correcto, sin dorarle la píldora, como decimos en mi país. Entonces, ese es nuestro compromiso con usted, mantenerlo definitivamente informado, y sobre todo la parte que menciona Vlad es muy importante, acompañarlo en esta fase que va a ser de reconstrucción, una fase muy importante. para también nuestra comunidad hispana que está caracterizada por ser una comunidad muy resiliente, una comunidad muy unida. También nos gusta ver esas historias de cooperación, de fraternidad, de comunidad. Una comunidad, la parte colectiva de esta comunidad hispana, de verdad es... de verdad que nos llega muy, muy adentro de nuestro corazón.
Sí, nos conmueve, así es.
Y es muy importante para nosotros continuar con nuestra labor, ofreciéndole estos recursos y, como les digo, en español.
Y algo importante, Gerardo, muchas veces asumimos que por no hablar inglés, por no ser ciudadanos, por no tener un estatus migratorio, por tener poco tiempo en el país, y para ustedes contar las razones que puede haber en torno a nuestras culturas hispanas y latinas, asumimos que no tenemos derecho, asumimos que aún teniendo derecho nadie nos escucha, y eso no es cierto. Eso probablemente fue así en algún momento, pero con cada vez más frecuencia las autoridades, al menos aquí en la Bahía de Tampa, por lo que podemos Gerardo y yo hablar, no sé el resto, pero por lo menos estoy hablando de Tampa, en general, no solamente están más conscientes de lo que significa la importancia de nuestra comunidad hispana, sino que esa conciencia la han transmitido, la han convertido en realidad. Muchas de las alcaldías, de las oficinas, los alguaciles, de la policía local, tienen funcionarios, tienen representantes, tienen enlaces con la comunidad que hablan totalmente en español. Condados o ciudades como Tampa o el condado Pinellas, que te tienen información en ambos idiomas 100%, tienen aquí todos los días o todas las semanas a Maribel Garrett, el enlace hispano de la alcaldía de Tampa, conversando con Gerardo y con ustedes, porque al fin y al cabo no es con Gerardo, es con ustedes, con nosotros los que residimos en Tampa, pero así como ella nos vamos a Pinellas, está Elisa Escarera, y así uno puede parar, no podría parar de mencionar tantas personas, así que lo importante a donde quiero llegar es que a veces creemos que no existen esos recursos y están. Lo que hay que saber es cómo llegar a esos recursos. Así que otra vez, si ustedes se encuentran perdidos en algún momento, aquí estamos nosotros para apoyarlos en nuestro idioma, con nuestra cultura, entendiendo nuestra realidad. Porque no se trata solamente de hablar inglés o español, sino entender cuál es nuestra realidad cultural que a veces nos detiene un poco y pues hay que romper también esa brecha.
Y vamos a volver al boletín del Centro Nacional de Huracanes. Seguimos monitoreando este huracán Milton, que todavía continúa siendo un huracán de categoría mayor, continúa siendo un huracán de categoría 3, con vientos máximos sostenidos de 120 millas por hora. Se pronostica que continúe haciendo su camino, que continúe avanzando tierra adentro por los condados interiores, como el condado Polk, moviéndose también por partes de los condados Vlad, Orange, Osceola, hasta salir.
For hour, I'm going to step to the side here so my photographer Jamie can actually zoom in on.
Al otro lado, a la costa este de la península de la Florida, pero en la última actualización, en el último boletín, lo que podemos rescatar es que está nada más a 20 millas. Estoy viendo en los comentarios que nos dicen, pero ¿cómo puede ser posible que todavía no sepan dónde va a tocar? Son 20 millas en este momento me parece que el momento justo, el punto justo donde vaya a tocar, sí importa, claro que sí importa, pero ya estamos sintiendo los efectos completos de este sistema. Y lo vemos en esta imagen, Vlad. Y si me permites, la voy a agrandar en este momento. Vemos esta área de Sarasota a las 8 de la noche, son las 8:13 en este radar. Vemos el corte hasta las 8 de la noche. Lo vemos prácticamente la mitad de este ojo del huracán completamente dentro del condado Sarasota, y luego va a empezar a hacer su camino va a continuar con su camino hacia el noreste hasta que salga por esta área. Me parece que va a ser y lo vemos ahí en este mapa, entre Merritt Island y Melbourne. Puede que sea por ese corredor, incluso
County. And I'll tell you, this is an area that is no stranger to some big hurricanes. Charlie, Francis, and Jean crisscrossed that county in 2004. Folks have been worried about this one because they know what the impact can be. Hurricane Irma left people without power for days and days, and they are in for a rough night there tonight. Georgia, tell us what you're experiencing.
Well, Jen, I'm experiencing the waves really packing the punch here. They've definitely picked up within the last half hour. We are seeing flooding, power outages, and a lot of people are really heeding some of those warnings here. Not a lot of people have been coming here to the downtown Lakeland area. We spoke to quite a few residents who migrated from Pinellas County to Polk to get away from some of that weather.
I've lived in my home for 35 years, and this is the first time ever that I've evacuated. And it was the fact that it was a Cat 5, and I just recall vividly the damage that was done to Fort Myers. And all of the models had it hitting directly at St. Pete. Now, that's changed, of course, but my wife has special needs, so I wanted her to be in a safe location.
And Jen and Stacy, the winds continue to pick up right here. This is why officials tell people to stay inside. Do not come out here in these conditions because the winds are nothing to play with. As you can see, they keep getting stronger and stronger by the minute, as well as some of that rain keeps coming down very heavily. Jen and Stacy.
All right, thanks, Georgia. And we know that the storm has made landfall at SRQ Airport. That's the Sarasota-Bradenton Airport. That is just within the last few minutes. At least it was moments away when we talked to Jeff a minute ago. So that area is really, might be in the eye of the storm right now, but it's going to see a lot on the back end.
Yeah, the backside of this storm, according to our meteorologist, is going to be a rough side. The conditions have been deteriorating in Manatee County all evening, and we want to get right over to News Channel 8's Brittany Muller. She's in Lakewood Ranch. And Brittany, you have someone standing by that you're going to talk to tonight because folks are really, they're worried there tonight.
Jen, they are worried, and it's very emotional here in Manatee County. Stacy, you just said it. We are 6 miles away from the Sarasota-Bradenton Airport, and it just made landfall. Hurricane Milton made landfall in this area. Sarah's joining me right now. She's riding out Hurricane Milton with us here at the hotel. How are you doing? We lost power, so how are you holding up right now?
I'm actually doing pretty well. I have my niece and her daughter with us, or with me, and we actually traveled earlier in the week thinking that the weather would not quite be like this. But I used to live in Florida, so this is not necessarily old or new to me, but this is the most severe one that I've been through, and I've not ever had to do it in a hotel. So a little bit different experience, but we're holding up okay. You know, we've got the preparations, we've got plenty of food, we've got all the things. And the big thing is you know, we're doing what we're told. Stay put, you know, shelter in place, don't go out, don't drive. So we've done all those things even up to the point where the hurricane was starting to really move a lot closer in.
Sarah, you were telling me you came down, you traveled from Colorado for a family reunion.
Yeah, family reunion of sorts. My nieces had not been here in quite a few years. I come back quite often, but they had not seen all their relatives, so I had scheduled this trip like 6 months ago, and we decided, why not? So it's now or never, and it turned out to be a different experience, but we did get to see all the relatives before all this started to happen.
What area? What community here?
Sarasota and Bradenton. So, and then I have friends that are in Sarasota and Bradenton area as well. I grew up here as a child, and then I moved away to Colorado, and then I've come back. I kind of go back and forth. I'm a good tourist, I'm a good local.
Right.
So a little bit of both.
This community could brace some of the worst impacts that we're seeing from Hurricane Milton. When that sun comes up tomorrow morning, we're going to see it for the first time. Yes. Are you fully expecting to see a different community?
Completely. And since a lot of my ties are to Siesta Key, and when I lived here, they were Siesta Key, I was heartbroken 2 weeks ago with Helene, and this is going to be even more heartbreaking because this is still home to me, and this is still my community. This is where I want to go out and help people if I can. But again, you're limited with what you can do. But yes, I will 100% support, whatever needs to be done. And obviously, we've got to keep staying out of the way or figuring out what to do. But so many people that are staying here, I don't own a home here anymore, but so many people that are staying here, the devastation, the devastation that they're going through with what do I take, what do I, leave behind. It's just not anything you can really put in words. It's something that if you've never been through it, you obviously will experience it when you go through it, but it's really heartbreaking to see people going through this.
It's amazing to see here at this hotel. People are coming together. We lost power probably about an hour ago, and the hotel's giving us glow sticks. Obviously, we have battery-powered lights. That's why it's so light in this room, but your room next door is not like
dark.
this. Completely dark.
Completely dark.
And so it's quiet, it's dark. You could hear that wind howling, and it's frightening.
It can be, and I think because I lived here, I'm not quite as, it's Mother Nature as well, so I'm not quite as frightened as maybe, my nieces might be because they've not ever experienced this kind of thing. But it is frightening no matter what, because nature does what nature does, and that's the thing that you just can't predict.
One of the things when we're talking, we're down in the lobby, when we're in these areas, everyone's talking about Helene and the devastation and the debris piled up. And it gives you the chills knowing that they don't know what they're going to see when they return home. When you have your family members in Sarasota and Bradenton, did they evacuate? Are they concerned?
I have some friends that evacuated. Some of them are in Jacksonville and Tallahassee. And then I also have family members that have stayed and boarded up and put out the sandbags this time, really paying attention to what this storm was potentially going to bring versus even what Helene did. And so they really did prepare. And again, they listened to the precautions. They followed kind of, the rules or of course, what you should and shouldn't do. And in my particular instance, my family and friends are safe. So I'm very grateful for that.
We're so happy to hear. That's the top priority right now, people's safety.
Everybody's safety. And the thing I think I worry about the most, especially even in a hotel setting, is we have a lot of elderly people here. And, if we lose the elevators, then we've all got to pitch in and help those people come up and down the stairs and things that, what we can do on a smaller scale to kind of still get to the next day. So
it's really emotional, and that's what it is. Sarah said it best. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. I think it's a community right now. Wherever you are, wherever you're sheltering in place, that's the message. People are helping people. People are just coming together in such a dire time, and we know that it's going to worsen before it improves. So we're riding out the storm, and we're being safe, and we're hoping that you're being safe as well. For now, reporting live in Manatee County, Brittany Muller, 8 on your side.
All right, Brittany.
All right, back here with you in the Stream Center, folks. Check out this new video from Brian Enton. This is pretty wild, and this shows.
This is Tampa Bay. Look at this. All the water has run out of the bay. We just walked over here. Louise is shooting. We're along Bayshore Boulevard. Hopefully you can hear me. The water is gone, so it has been sucked out by Milton, which we suspected was going to happen. Our light's not bright enough to see how far out it goes, but I don't see any for as far as I can see. So this is Tampa Bay.
So
that's incredible.
We talked to Brian, about this, about 5 hours ago. It feels like, was it 4 hours ago? I'm losing track of the hours, folks. Brian was on and talking about, hey, I see the water starting to get lower. That might have been tide at the time. That could have been, of course, the beginning of that phenomenon, which is the water getting sucked out.
You can see it there in the
clockwise rotating winds
number 9 camera
of Hurricane Milton.
And that's what
so far, we've got a 93 mile per hour recorded gust at the Sarasota International Airport, Albert Whitted Airport in St. Petersburg, 89 miles per hour, and 79 miles per hour at St. Petersburg in Clearwater. So most of the strongest wind winds that have been recorded so far are happening up here. And a lot of the, a lot of the deeper convection is pretty far away from the actual eye of the storm. So that's why we think that some of this right here is likely going to be an even bigger deal as far as the winds go whenever that wraps around on the backside here. Man, the water is coming in very quickly now in Inglewood and in Port Charlotte. It's pretty nuts. Once again, this is what we're dealing with here. We've got this huge circulating area. The reason why the water is receding in the Tampa Bay is because all of the winds are blowing this way, out to sea. With the reason why we're starting to see water come up in portions of the southern and southeastern side or southwestern side of Florida is because we're now starting to see the waters move up against the shoreline. It's still not at the maximum, angle. It's not at the most intense angle yet, and it's getting ready to be. And that's when we'll see most of the water come in. Go ahead, Elijah.
Hey, Ryan. So, per the National Hurricane Center, it has officially made landfall as a Category 3 hurricane. Maximum sustained winds of 120 miles per hour. With a central pressure of 954 millibars.
All right. Thank you so much, Elijah. It's official. It's official. We officially have landfall recorded here and officiated by the National Hurricane Center. Go ahead, Caleb.
Hey, Ryan, I just wanted to let anyone know, I know some people jumped over from my stream to your stream just because I've been seeing comments, but I am perfectly okay. I did get hit by a street sign that is now a part of Paul Force 1 because it hit the Starlink. But I do... What is this? 22nd Street West is now officially a part of Fall Force
1. What? Okay. All right. Thank you.
You guys can pull up my stream, but it is on the truck.
Well, I'm glad you're all right. I thought when you first did this, I thought you had made a decorative addition to the truck, but this you're telling me that this just happened, like this just landed like this?
Well, I have not gotten out of the truck recently. I was driving down, and I'm pretty sure it fell off of a street sign. I was literally just sitting here, heard a loud bang, so I swung the camera around, and there it was, just sitting on the truck.
All right. All right, thank you, Caleb. I guess it's got to be a permanent addition to the truck now, so make sure you keep that thing. All right, so Caleb's out there in Hall Force 1 with our PTZ rooftop camera there. Almost got took out by a street sign, it seems. I swear I don't understand how that's just sitting there. Like, it looks like it's installed. It looks like it's installed on the truck. All right. Unfortunately, we are still over 600,000 people without power. Extremely dangerous Category 3 Hurricane Milton has made landfall on October 9th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Near Siesta Key, Florida, life-threatening storm surge, extreme winds, and flash flooding are occurring over Central Florida right now. And the waters continue to rise. Here's an update from Venice, Florida, where Bryce is, and things are even getting more and more intense in Punta Gorda, where Brad is. Landfall has occurred. Yep, for those of you who are just now tuning in, it's official. Hurricane Milton made landfall at 8:30 near Siesta Key with 120-mile-per-hour winds as a Category 3 storm. Conditions do continue to rapidly deteriorate in Tampa as well. Strong winds and heavy rain are causing flash flooding problems. We are getting to the point where we are probably going to start hearing about freshwater rescues here soon. This is a serious flooding event that's about to take place in Tampa. Go ahead, Elijah.
Hey, Ryan, I have the unfortunate job to report that we have multiple fatalities confirmed from the tornado outbreak today. The St. Lucie County Sheriff has confirmed that multiple people were killed from at least one of the tornadoes today at the Spanish Lakes Country Club. They were not any more specific, but multiple fatalities have occurred from the tornadoes today.
All right, thank you, Elijah. Unfortunately, that is something that I was preparing for. I was hoping for the best, but I'm telling y'all some of the imagery that we saw from some of those tornadoes are, I mean, they go hand in hand with any other major killer tornado that we've seen before. So hopefully that number, obviously it's terrible when we lose anybody, but hopefully that number doesn't get too high. As once again, the warnings and everything were really efficient, I think, today on behalf of the National Weather Service, and of course with us and Andy here trying our best to get those warnings out in front of everybody. It's a tough thing to communicate sometimes, especially when people are expecting a hurricane. The damaging tornado aspect. So once again, I would caution and say that we can expect that number to rise a little bit, but hopefully not too much, because and I don't want to do it right now, but we'll show before this stream ends some more imagery and some more kind of recaps of the tornado outbreak part of this. But those were nasty tornadoes, and we're starting to see some devastation from the damage as well. So, but now we are in full-blown hurricane mode, as a major Category 3 Hurricane Milton has made landfall. Tampa is getting in on some heavy rain and strong winds right now. That is getting ready to move up into Lakeland, Lutz, and Dade City as well. Oh my gosh. We found the sign. This is the sign that's currently stuck on top of Hall Force 1. Somebody found it on Google Maps. Street View. Be prepared for Hurricane Milton in the event of a power outage. Obviously, you want to make sure you have your phone charged or a tablet. But in a worst case scenario, it would be useful if you had a NOAA weather radio to make sure you know where that is and make sure batteries are in it. 162.4. That's going to be your frequency over there for the NOAA weather radios. You can also get that on the 162.4 FM. 92.1 FM is iHeartRadio, which will be broadcasting weather alerts. WENG radio, 107.5 FM, 98.1 FM, and 1530 AM as well. The Florida Public Radio Emergency Network is 88.5 FM. Hopefully we don't have to deal with a situation where we don't have power or cell phone service, but ask our friends in North Carolina about that. It's a problem that some of them are still dealing with today. $700,000 people without power now. Look at the donation counter up there for the y'allsquad.org. We are crossing over $190,000 raised now. Thank you all so much. We're going to put it to good use. Ryan's voice is slowly drifting into late night smooth R&B radio DJ territory. Yeah, I'm starting to actually kind of like it. I think I'm just going to stay sick. What do you do? Just squirt it in there? I've never had honey water. No. I can't taste anything anyways. No. Yeah, landfall has occurred. We're officially, oh wow, we're officially over $200,000 raised. over at the y'allsquad.org. That is insane. That is huge. Lots of records broken today. Unfortunately, it's not, it's not it's not anything to celebrate.
Hey Ryan, it's Brad. Hit me up when you get a chance.
Terrible circumstances. I am happy that so many people are taking the weather seriously right now, though. It's a beautiful thing to see. Go ahead, Brad.
Hey, I know it's been a little bit since I've talked to you, but just wanted to let you know that we are experiencing extreme surge now here in Punta Gorda. I hope this guy on the stream's not about to drive. Anyways, extreme surge now in Punta Gorda, upwards of 4 feet. In the city, it has broken the wall, like I said, about an hour ago, and it is continuing to pile in. It's going to be interesting to see just how high it can get.
All right, we've got front row seats to whatever happens here in Punta Gorda, thanks to Brad Arnold. Bradenton, Caleb's got us covered. And then Venice, which is a little bit calmer right now than it will be later. We've got Bryce Shelton out there. Thank you. Oh my God, really? Shout out to the guy at Dollar General who sold us the honey. He's watching, apparently. Thank you so much for the honey. I heard it's going to help. Not a fan of honey water. Nah, we're good. Yes, landfall has occurred. It's already made landfall. We're now waiting on the backside to really kind of showcase the power of the storm down there in Inglewood. You're really feeling the full brunt of it, though, the closer you are to St. Petersburg right now. Now, I don't know if we have any chasers up that way or not, but if we do, we should try to tune into one of them. Go ahead, Elijah.
Hey, Ryan. So I have an update on the overall death toll now for Hurricane Milton. So far, I know of at least 5 deaths that have occurred in the United States, all of those in Florida, and 1 death occurred in Mexico for a total of 6 deaths so far. 4 of these have, or sorry, 3 of the ones in Florida occurred from vehicle crashes during evacuations. We have the multiple fatalities report for the tornadoes that occurred today. So that's kind of at least 2. And then 1 in Mexico occurred
costa para que usted tenga toda la información del huracán Milton y los detalles en tiempo real. Indiscutiblemente ya confirmándonos que justamente Milton ha tocado tierra y lo ha hecho cerca de la costa oeste de la Florida, muy próximo al área de Sarasota, entre Sarasota y la ciudad de Bradenton, en la costa oeste de la Florida. Ahí, indiscutiblemente, lo que se está viviendo en esa zona es impresionante. Las imágenes que vamos a ver en solo minutos, vamos a enlazarnos con todas las cámaras desde diferentes puntos de impacto y vamos a detallar lo que los principales medios de información estadounidense y locales están informando respecto a la situación que se está viviendo en este minuto. Vamos a ir a nuestro chat porque hay muchas personas también que nos están escribiendo que también están interesados en saber qué es lo que está ocurriendo. Incluso si usted puede apoyarnos, si usted reside en alguna de esas zonas de alto riesgo y quiere dejarnos mensajes, quiere enviarnos videos, quiere enviarnos información, puede hacerlo. Estamos completamente en vivo y en directo. Ahí estamos precisamente con información en tiempo real y vamos hacia el chat. Hace algunos minutos justamente teníamos ya la información precisamente de varios reportes que nos llegaban del momento exacto en el que se iban a sentir los vientos más extremos. Incluso el Servicio de Meteorología Local de Tampa había emitido un aviso de inundaciones repentinas que entraría en efecto hasta el área hasta las 11:30 de la noche de hoy. Esta es una situación peligrosa y amenazante para la vida. No intente viajar a menos que sea para abandonar un área propensa a inundaciones y bajo una orden de desalojo. Esas son las alertas que siguen emitiendo los principales líneas telefónicas que están en la costa oeste de los Estados Unidos en este instante. Incluso también otros reportes que nos llegaban justamente en las primeras horas de esta tarde, cuando ya comenzaron a sentirse los efectos. Las alertas también comenzaron a incidir precisamente con aspectos importantes. Incluso el Servicio Nacional de Meteorología también advertía de un aviso de viento extremo en efecto para todo el área, que estaba bajo peligro inmediato de viento que pudiera amenazar la vida hasta casi aproximadamente las 9:30 de la noche, hora del este. Moverse inmediatamente al interior del edificio, alejarse de ventanas, proteger su cabeza de proyectiles, no salga en la calma del ojo del huracán, el viento se tornará peligroso rápidamente. Eso eran parte de las alertas que llegaban a millones de residentes en la costa oeste de la Florida que precisamente no habían podido escapar del sistema y indiscutiblemente formaba parte de ese aviso importante que las autoridades locales insistían en la ciudadanía a enfrentar un sistema de esta magnitud como lo ha sido Milton, un sistema extremadamente peligroso. Estamos también a la espera de nueva actualización. Aproximadamente a las 9 de la noche, el Centro Nacional de Huracanes va a emitir un nuevo comunicado de actualización, posiblemente de trayectoria, así que estamos a la espera de esa actualización para seguir compartiendo con todos ustedes esta cobertura en vivo. Por favor, usted comparta la transmisión para llegar a más personas. Dejen ese importante like para que YouTube continúe recomendándonos, y así poder llegar y alcanzar a más personas y poder salvar vidas, que es lo importante en estas horas cruciales de las cuales está viviendo el estado de la Florida. Como les dije, ya Milton tocó tierra, lo hizo aproximadamente a las 8:31 de la noche, hora local,
huracán
del
Milton
este
con
de
toda
los
su
Estados
fuerza.
Unidos.
Regreso contigo al estudio.
Continua del huracán Milton acá en Noticias Univisión 24/7. Estamos en cobertura en instantes.
when it kind of goes back and forth like that, you can never be precise on a hurricane. I know sometimes people can think, oh, they're smarter than the hurricane or smarter than the meteorologist. They don't want to get out of town. Did people in Fort Myers sort of listen to all the warnings?
I believe a majority, more than usual anyway, listen this time. You could just see it in downtown where the way the merchants boarded up their businesses where they hadn't done that in the past. So there's thousands of people in our shelters. I believe they have taken our word, our advice, and followed it. You know, I preach from day one of hurricane season. The unpredictable thing about the hurricane is, or the most predictable thing about the hurricane is it's unpredictable.
Mayor, we thank you for your time tonight. Please stay safe. We're going to leave you with this image as I'm going to turn it over to Gotti Schwartz. He's going to pick up some of our live coverage, but we're going to continue with Hurricane Milton. The storm surge has started here in Sarasota. We are in the eye, but the surge has started. That wraps up this hour. Our coverage continues right now.
As we're coming on the air tonight, Milton, a catastrophic Category 3 hurricane, has just made landfall near Siesta Key, Florida. Now, this is a life-threatening situation with officials stressing if you did not get out, you need to be sheltering in place right now. This is a live look at the conditions in Fort Myers, Florida, as we speak. Milton is packing winds of up to 120 miles per hour. Nearly 800,000 people are already without power. Storm surge warnings are in effect up and down the coast as some parts could see up to 15 feet of rising water tonight. Now, this is on top of a record-breaking number of dangerous tornadoes ripping through the center of Florida throughout this chaotic day. Dozens of twisters through communities hours before landfall. Again, that is ahead of the hurricane. Some areas already reporting roofs torn apart and people hurt. There were more than 100 tornado warnings today, the most ever in Florida in a single day. We will have special coverage over the next 2 hours tracking Hurricane Milton as it makes landfall. Our team of correspondents are on the ground all across Florida, and top story anchor Tom Yamas will be guiding us through these critical hours as he rides through the hurricane from the ground zero of Sarasota County. His team is repositioning as we speak. But first, for an overview of what so much of Florida is facing right now, let's start with NBC News meteorologist Angie Lastman. Angie, we've got that super destructive eye wall that has inched closer to where Tom and his team have been. Now he is inside of that eye wall. What are conditions looking like all around Florida right now?
Hey there, Gotti. Yeah, so the thing is, if you're inside of the eye wall, all is calm. We saw some reports that it's even a little humid. You start to hear really everything that's going on around you, but it's that eye wall that is so destructive that we are so concerned about when it comes to wind damage, when it comes to the rainfall, and of course on the backside of that system, all of the water being shoved up against the coast. We did have landfall, you mentioned it, in Siesta Key just a little while ago. This system is going to continue cruising to the north and east here as basically the next 12 hours goes on, but notice how aggressive this band of rain is set up across parts of Tampa, Bradenton and points north of that, St. Pete included in that, the Tampa area. We're watching the eye kind of right around here. The south of that, that's where we're starting to see the storm surge really ramp up. It's been ongoing. It's going to continue to get worse here as we go through at least the next 2 hours for areas Sarasota and points south towards Venice, even Naples recording 5 to 6 feet of storm surge already. Those numbers are going to continue to be on the rise here as the next couple of hours go by. Notice this blue box. That's an extreme wind warning. That's going to go until 9:30 tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets extended. That means that basically you're talking about very aggressive and destructive winds. The National Weather Service tells you to act like this is a tornado warning happening right over you. So that's exactly what people should be doing if they chose to stay in this area for inland areas along I-4, Tampa Bay, St. Pete, all of that included. And again, stretching down into the Bradenton area where you see these purple and red returns on a radar. That means torrential, really aggressive rainfall at the same time. This system is kind of north loaded. So you see on the northern side of the eye wall, that's where the strongest winds are, and that's where the heaviest of the rain is. On the backside, it doesn't mean that there aren't, really damaging effects happening there with the eye wall, but if you're in this area, I mean, you're going to see more power outages here. You're going to likely see, as the sun comes up tomorrow, a lot of wind damage going through this eye wall in places like Bloomingdale, St. Petersburg, Tampa, Clearwater even. And that's just the wind damage that we'll watch for there. Now, one thing to note, this system's going to stay together as a hurricane here as it crosses the state. It'll do so pretty quick. Notice this is 2 p.m. on Thursday. It's already out into the Atlantic. So I would say by 11 a.m., maybe noon, it'll be out of the state of Florida and off into those ocean waters. But it's still going to be a Category 1, and we're still going to see those Category 1 hurricane force winds associated with it as it works across central Florida, Orlando area, and across the Space Coast as well. On top of that, those heavy rains will also be there. When it comes to the storm surge, you know, this is what we feared so much leading up to this storm system. We've got over 4 feet of storm surge happening for Naples right now. We've got almost 4 feet in Fort Myers. This, of course, you know, nothing compared to what they dealt with in Hurricane Ian, but this number is going to go up, and this is well away from the center of that system. We're probably talking about much higher ranges a little farther to the north. We unfortunately don't have gauges there to tell us that there just simply is not gauges in that area, Gotti. So we're going to have to wait until, of course, the light of day to see some of what the worst of that storm surge brings. Right now in the Tampa Bay, we have reverse storm surge going on. So the water rushing out with those offshore winds. This is going to continue here for the next couple of hours, and we'll see, you know, the system continue to move across the state with the other impacts that it'll bring to folks there here over the next 12 hours or so.
Angie Lastman with a little bit of good news for Tampa Bay with those negative storm surge numbers. But we have Stephanie Gosk, who is in Tampa Bay right now, and that is where we're seeing the worst of the torrential rain. Stephanie, what are you seeing on the ground right now? We know there's been torrential rain and flooding, but the storm surge might not be as bad as feared. So describe the situation that you're in right now.
Yeah, Gotti, it's the rain, but it is also the wind. I mean, we are seeing ferocious gusts of wind. They have to have topped 100. They were up to 95, 96 earlier, maybe about a half an hour ago, and they've just picked up and ratcheted it up even further. We're seeing trees bent over, signs whipping off of buildings. This is certainly the worst that it has gotten. And then there is the rain, the torrential rain. It's been raining all day here, but has started to come down much faster and much harder. You can tell these gusts are coming in pretty strong. Their rain, according to Bill Cairns, for the next 3 or 4 hours, this area of Tampa could get 2 to 3 inches of rain an hour. That will be on top of what's already fallen. So, yes, there isn't going to be the storm surge here in Tampa Bay, but you're looking at upwards of a foot of rain falling on a place that is already saturated from a previous storm, on top of the damage that this wind is inevitably doing on this region as I talk to you.
And Stephanie, people may be tuning in right now and wondering, how are you still standing and those palm trees behind you are blowing like crazy? Can you walk us through some of the safety precautions you and your team have taken?
It's a great question. We are actually in a parking garage made out of cement. We are on the 3rd story of the parking garage, and we are surrounded by 3 walls basically. So you're looking out at the wind. But I can tell you, even the wind coming in here, I'm slightly slight of frame. If it hits me just the right way, I almost tumble over. I mean, it is that strong, and it's much stronger out on the streets here. We are in an area that is close to where there are some hotels and a mall. You just don't see any sign of cars or people or anything. They have cleared out. They have heeded the warnings. They're staying in place, and we are taking precautions to be safe here as well, Gotti.
Stephanie, it seems like Tampa has had a lot of close calls over the years, but a hurricane hasn't hit that area directly in almost a century. So how prepared is Tampa for a hurricane?
Yeah, well, you know, this entire coast of Florida just gets hit at various stages in various ways from hurricanes. It is a fact of life if you live here. And yes, there hasn't been a hurricane that has directly hit Tampa in a century, but people here know that they're going to have to do it. There's a great example and a critical one for the city of Tampa, and that is the Tampa General Hospital. And they have taken incredible measures to make sure that they can stay operational. They are such a critical place for people to get care, especially during a storm where people could get hurt. They have flood walls that protect for storm surge up to 12 feet. They have their own power plant, Gotti, to keep the lights on 32 feet above sea level. They have moved all of the patients and doctors and staff out of the first floor, and they keep 5 full days of supplies and medicines and food so that they can wait out whatever might happen. They are perhaps the most critical infrastructure of this city, and it just goes to show that people know that these storms are going to come through. But this period of time, Hurricane Helene, followed by this storm, it is a 1-2 punch that they have not seen in this city in a very long time. Gotti.
Incredible, the power of Mother Nature behind you there, Stephanie Gosk in Tampa. Thank you so much. And for a split screen here, let's go to Tom Yamas, who is in Sarasota right now. Tom, just before this, I was watching your coverage, and you were in the eye of the storm. And, you know, we just saw Stephanie Gosk kind of getting blown around in the shelter of concrete. Describe this situation that you're in, because you were right in that eye, right?
Yeah, the eye was incredibly calm. It was quiet. It was eerily quiet. And unfortunately, when it gets like that, it brings people out. And so now I'm going to be kind of looking out of the corner of my eye because there's a lot of people in sort of high water pickup trucks, if you will, and they're just sort of zooming around, looky-loos, if you will. They're doing donuts. They're trying to splash the water in different directions. It's dangerous. It's reckless. And what they don't realize is that now that the eye wall or the back eye wall is about to hit us, this is the strongest part of the hurricane. So the eye is obviously very calm. Now that is past, the strongest hurricane force winds are going to hit us. What I do want to show you, though, Gotti, is pretty incredible. This is the beginning of the storm surge. When we came out here, maybe about 15, 30 minutes ago, there wasn't water here. It's moving really, really fast. You can actually see it on the camera as it's pushing forward. This is coming from the bay. It's coming right into Sarasota. And this is the big fear right now. It's not going to get too serious until those hurricane force winds start pushing that water ahead. It could be anywhere from 8 to 12 feet. The power behind me, you notice, is out. So we're dealing with some power outages right now. But again, we're still sort of feeling the effects of the eye of the storm, which even though this is a monster hurricane, it's a phenomenon of weather. It is incredible. It is completely calm right now. It is the zen spot, if you will, of the hurricane right before the chaos starts once again. And that's the backside of the storm. And the wind gusts are picking up a little bit, Gotti. So we know it's coming in maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes.
15, 20, 30 minutes. How long have you been in the storm, sir? How long have you been in the eye there?
You know, the eye, I'd say, and I have my team out here with us. What do we think, guys? Like maybe 30, 45 minutes? Probably about 45 minutes. Our audio engineer, Mr. Pope, who's an experienced storm chaser here, he's been with us, been monitoring the conditions. He thinks it's about 45 minutes. I think he's right. But again, Gotti, like, it's hard to explain. I've covered a lot of hurricanes, and you forget how calm it is in the eye. I mean, it was blowing. There are trees that are already down in Sarasota, and then suddenly it just stops. And it feels like any summer night in Sarasota, and now it's picking up again. What I'm worried about is the people that have come out, because there's a lot of cars now that are out here. They shouldn't be. But the police said, listen, we're not coming back out until after the storm. So these people know that the cops aren't going to be out here. And, you know, there's, again, looky-loos, people being cavalier. I'm going to show you one right now. It's coming through here. George, we can pass over here. You have a lot of vehicles like this. They're high water vehicles. You know, they're pickup trucks. They're Wranglers. They have huge tires. And in some cases, not that guy, but in some cases they're doing donuts. They're revving their engines up. They're trying to have fun in a hurricane, which, again, I mean, whatever floats your boat, but, you know, it's not safe.
No, and it's so misleading. I mean, when you're in the eye, it's eerie. There is almost a beauty to it, because you're in this storm that has been battering the area for hours and hours and hours, and all of a sudden there's this calm, and yet you see the destructive nature on the backside, which is what you're going to be experiencing here in the next hour, 2 hours. Does it seem like most people have heeded the warnings? Does it seem like most people have evacuated and left?
It did until the eye came over us, and then we started seeing all these pickups and all these cars coming through here. So it was calm. It was quiet. It looked like it's safe. Look, we're staying in a hotel on the water, and people have come out. There are people staying in the hotel. This is an evacuation zone, though. But I think some of the people in the hotels that are high up, our hotel is very high up. I'd say it's probably maybe 50 to 100 feet up, 50 to 100 feet up. So, you know, we feel very protected here. But again, I got to tell you, Gotti, the water here, it's wild. It's coming in. And the rate that it's coming in is pretty fast. So I think over the next 4 or 5 hours, we're going to see some serious flooding in Sarasota. I mean, it was forecasted. It's just the question is how high it's going to be. You see, this is what I'm talking about here. People just zooming by, going as fast as they can in some cases.
Wow. And the storm surge was it was a huge concern a little bit north of you, and it looks like that is now shifted south. Does it look like the storm surge is already starting to set in where you are?
Yeah, look, it looks like it's coming in. I mean, the big fear was the storm surge in Tampa Bay, that black swan event. Luckily, and not luckily for other communities, but luckily for Tampa Bay, the storm, it hit a little south of Tampa. If it hit north, it'd be a much different story. That's why Sarasota will feel the brunt of that storm surge, and that's why people here are concerned tonight. Again, once we get to that back of that eye wall, it's going to be a much different story. Gotti, I'm going to pick up our coverage now because I know our colleague Priscilla Thompson is standing by in Orlando. She's been covering the tornadoes and the tornado threats throughout the central and eastern part of the state. Priscilla, what can you tell us tonight?
Yeah, so we know that there have been dozens of reported tornadoes throughout central and southern part of the state, and we've seen some pretty dramatic footage of the damage. In St. Lucie County, there was a sheriff's building that is now just a pile of mangled metal, and we're talking about a 10,000 square foot building that has just been destroyed by a reported tornado. We also got some traffic cam in from Fort Pierce, Florida, where you just see these huge debris flying by as there is a funnel cloud there. And there are also reports of some injuries in some places as a result of these tornadoes. The good news is that a number of those tornado watches did expire at 9 p.m. So there's hopes that we will not see any more of that tonight, but certainly a very terrifying experience on top of an already very destructive and potentially deadly storm. Tom?
Okay, Priscilla Thompson for us. Priscilla, we appreciate it. We thank you for all your reporting. Please stay safe. I do want to talk to the emergency management operator for Sarasota County, where we are tonight. Oh, okay. I think we're gonna dial in and talk to her soon. Do we still have Priscilla? All right, Priscilla. We still have you, so I think we're gonna stick with you for a little bit. But while we do this, I want to show that the people we're talking about, people in the looky-loos not taking things seriously. There's a couple on a motorcycle right now, just going through a massive hurricane. Again, we're in the eye, so it's calm, but probably not the best idea, especially when the storm surge has started. You can see it here, the water is rising, and it's actually rising surprisingly fast. I mean, I've covered hurricanes before, and you see that storm surge come in, but you can actually see the rate at which the water's coming in, pushing some of the debris. Luckily, there were no debris piles out here on the coast of Sarasota. We know that in the neighborhoods and the suburbs there are, but thankfully they cleared out all that debris here. The wind's still not that strong. Priscilla, I'm curious, where you are in Orlando, what kind of effects are you feeling from the hurricane?
Yeah, Tom, so the rain is starting to come down harder. Already we're seeing some water beginning to pool on some of the roadways here, and the winds are also starting to pick up. And so right now officials are saying if you are not yet sheltering, you have about a half hour to do that before the worst of this storm is expected to move in and make things a lot more complicated here. And what is interesting about this area is that during Hurricane Ian, they saw devastating flooding, and Milton is expected to be far worse. We're talking about up to 14 inches of rain here that could just cause catastrophic flooding in addition to the 80-mile-per-hour winds, and there are people who have evacuated to this area. I spoke to a woman who lives in St. Petersburg, said that she lost everything during Hurricane Helene. All that she has left there is a 10-foot by 10-foot storage unit that is on the first floor in St. Petersburg with all of her life's possessions. They drove up here to Orlando today, and she is just numb. She says that she doesn't know what to expect. I want to play a little bit of that conversation I had with her.
You're really kind of numb. You're really just kind of numb. We've all been in shock. Just your adrenaline just takes over. We've been through a lot of suffering, so I think we understand suffering in just such different ways, and I know that we get through it.
And so many people here just feeling lost. And that woman, I don't know if you could see, was clutching a rosary, and she told me that she has been praying nonstop, hoping that this storm will not be as bad as it is projected to be, especially here in Orlando, where she and her family are sheltering. Tom?
All right, Priscilla, we thank you for that. We have Sandra Tapfumane on the phone right now. She's in charge of the emergency management for Sarasota County. Sandra, thanks for joining us once again in our special coverage. You know, the eye is passing over Sarasota. It's been very calm, at least where we have been for the last hour or so. The winds are now starting to pick up. Have you gotten any reports about any kind of emergency situation so far? And what are you monitoring?
Yeah, hi. Thanks so much for having us on. Yeah, so right now we have not gotten too many reports of any emergencies. We do anticipate that to increase as the eye wall or the eye passes over the county. Right now it was going over Siesta Key and starting to hit inland a little bit. So it is eerily calm here, and we know that that's not going to be the case in a short time. We're expecting the storm to deteriorate with the conditions.
Yeah, you know, I'm here live in Sarasota. We're right by the bay. The storm surge, you can actually see it coming up now. I'd say it's about ankle high where we are, and we're a little bit above sea level here, so it's coming in. Have you gotten reports about the storm surge yet?
So we did see, we were watching some Department of Transportation cameras along the Philippi Creek, and it looked like it was starting to flood that area, and some reports about Venice Beach having a couple of feet of storm surge down south. So yeah, so it's starting, it is starting, and I anticipate that, you know, we're going to have multiple feet. We're really hoping that we're not going to get that high end of the 12-foot projection at this point. I mean, we just had Hurricane Helene that created a lot of devastation to the coastline, and that was only 5 to 6 feet. So, you know, anywhere above that, really any storm surge on top of what we already had is going to be a very, very catastrophic situation for the county.
What are you hearing about power outages? Here, the power is out where we are. We're seeing transformers explode in the distance. Have you got any reports about that?
Yeah, we are starting to hear about different parts of the county that are without power. Really, there's a lot of areas that are. So we are trying to get an assessment from FPL to get a total count of how many are out. But we, you know, that was an anticipation with the high winds. You know, 120-mile-per-hour winds is definitely going to take out a lot of the power. So right now, we're looking at 160,000 out of power, and you anticipate that to increase.
All right, Sandra Tapfumane, we appreciate you, and I know we're going to stay in contact throughout the night. Thank you for all that you're doing for the people of Sarasota.
Thank you so very much.
When we come back, we're going to have much more from Hurricane Milton. The winds are starting to pick up here in Sarasota as the eye passes us. What else is happening around the state? Stay with us.
We know the effortless magic of service doesn't happen by chance. We're here to help.
Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air tonight with new developments. Let's talk about the implications on women's health and then the political fallout. Start with what this law actually will and won't do. Crews, officials will do almost anything they can to get it back open ASAP. So how S is the P? In other words, how soon will it be open?
I could keep talking till the Eiffel Tower starts sparkling.
Now you've laid down the gauntlet, so we have to continue to speak until it starts to sparkle. It's sparkling. It's happening.
They're rolling on.
Welcome back to our live coverage of Hurricane Milton. The situation here in Sarasota is starting to turn dire. At first, we had, okay, we're gonna go, we gotta go.
Wow, that is a
I'm gonna
live
send it
look
back to you
right
guys.
now.
Gotti, we're okay. We just want to move inside.
Wow. If you're joining us live, we're watching Tom Yamas and his team fall back right now. Just moments ago, Tom Yamas was in the eye of the storm. It was completely quiet. There were people driving around. There was not that storm surge that you're seeing. And now all of a sudden, within a matter of a minute or two, it is complete chaos where he is. The wind gusts are picking up. You see those flashes of light. You see what look like transformers blowing in the background, and that storm surge has come in. Again, we are watching this live feed of Tom Yamas and his team falling back to safety. If you were watching just a few minutes ago, you saw Tom. He was walking out there in the street. He was walking in relative calm. We were just talking about how eerie it was. And now that team is having to fall back to some safety. You see the footsteps there in the storm surge that is rising there in Sarasota. Incredible images. We're going to wait for Tom Yamas to reposition in a safer position. They've got a lot of different fallback locations throughout that area, and so they're going to be falling back to one of those safer positions. But for now, joining me from Sarasota as well is storm chaser Ben McMillan. Ben, did you see this? All of a sudden, the backside of the wall comes screaming in, just like Tom's team there.
Yeah, Gaddy, some really scary moments. You saw some of the power flashes, the explosions in Sarasota. We've moved north to Bradenton, and you can see now significant storm surges coming in off the bay here, Tampa Bay, into the area here, and the conditions are really going downhill quickly. So last few moments here have gotten extremely violent with the wind, and I think it's definitely safe to say the storm's not over yet.
And Ben, you've been outside all day. How quickly have you seen things change from the storm, from the eye, and then back to what you're experiencing now?
Well, I think the most revealing thing is how quickly we had a calm eye probably just 15 minutes ago. I was out here standing talking with my crew. We have a paramedic and a photographer, and we had no issues. And now you can see I can barely even stand. But I'm going to step back and show you I'm knee-deep in water. So this water was not here. The winds were calm. So that just shows you how dangerous these storms are and how violent they can be. I'm now seeing power flashes in the distance.
Wow, Ben, well, thank you so much for your coverage, and we hope you fall back and find somewhere safe to ride out this particularly intense part of the storm. Sure. Joining us now is Jamie Roan. She's the Deputy Director of the National Hurricane Center. Thank you so much for being with us right now. We're in the landfall window. The timing has moved up literally a few hours ago, and it's become stronger, bigger. It's making landfall, and now we're seeing the backside of that wall go through. Can you walk us through what we're seeing right now?
Yeah, unfortunately, all of the hazards that were predicted with this particular landfall are unfolding. You can see it in some of the footage ahead of this segment. So let's start first with the heavy rain. So the heavy rain is along and to the north of where the center is tracking. That is placing that heavy rain and that flash flooding. And this is not typical rain. This is seriously intense rainfall rates over the Tampa Bay area, and it's going to move along the I-4 corridor overnight, so that's Lakeland and Orlando. The worst of the surge, which is where the footage was earlier, is down here south of where it made landfall. So it made landfall at Siesta Key. So the worst of the surge is this Port Charlotte, Venice area in Sarasota County. And so, they're sort of experiencing the brunt of it as we speak. And then the core of a major hurricane moved ashore here. And so these extreme winds, and we've already got a report of a gust of over 102 miles per hour. These extreme winds are just moving inland, and with it, you're just getting, exponential rise in power outages as this core moves slowly inland.
And when we're looking at Sarasota right there, where a bulk of our teams are, you're starting to see the backside of the storm come in. How much storm surge is that going to be bringing in the next 30 minutes to an hour?
Well, we think the peak of the storm surge is going to be somewhere in the 9 to 13 feet. We don't have any instruments that can hold up to those types of conditions, so we don't have anything to measure it or report it. But just based off experience, when you get that sort of onshore wind at a big hurricane, you're going to get every bit of that 9 to 13.
And what are your biggest concerns as you see the hurricane now making landfall and ripping across Florida there?
It's unfortunately impacting a densely populated portion of Florida. This I-4 corridor that connects Tampa, Orlando, and Daytona, very heavily populated, and some of the worst of the conditions are going to ride right along that area, exposing probably millions of people to these conditions.
And we know that the storm surge, it doesn't seem like the storm surge concern for Tampa has materialized, but where are the places
Bastantes daños ahí.
The peak of the storm surge is just a little bit to the south because the center came in just south of Tampa. So that 9 to 13 is probably in the Venice, Port Charlotte area.
Jamie Roan with the National Hurricane Center, thank you. And we are continuing our special coverage as Hurricane Milton makes landfall across Florida's Gulf Coast near Siesta Key as a dangerous, potentially life-threatening Category 3 storm. The monster storm weakened overnight from a Category 5, but then grew in size. Impacts are going to be felt all across Florida, even up to southern Georgia. And flooding and power outages are already a major issue. More than 1 million people right now all without power. And storm surge, as we were just hearing, could reach up to 15 feet in some parts. Tornadoes have also been making things much more dangerous as dozens of reported twisters earlier ripped up some communities hours before landfall. All of this happening just 2 weeks since Hurricane Helene slammed into Florida, forcing people in hard-hit areas to scramble and to get rid or secure any debris that could be a hazard in front of their homes. Before Milton's arrival, that's some of those debris piles that you're seeing right now. Hopefully those debris piles, most of them have been taken away, because as the storm surge comes in and as the winds rip through, you can see how those debris piles can turn very, very dangerous. NBC News meteorologist Angie Lassman joins us now. Angie, I mean, that was incredible. I don't know if you were watching, but that shot with Tom Yamas earlier, it was fine. It was peaceful. It was almost this eerie calm, right? And then as soon as we went to him, in a matter of seconds, everything turned and he was just being tossed around, and they had to fall back. So can you walk us through what they experienced with those winds as the wall went over them?
Yeah, so they experienced the pressure drop in the eye. They experienced the extreme calm where you can even sometimes hear frogs and bugs outside. And then they experienced really the worst of what Hurricane Milton has to offer when it comes to those winds. We know that the eye wall is where the strongest winds live. And where Tom is, they aren't actually the worst of it per se, because you move a little farther to the north and you'll really start to see things ramping up, but it isn't pretty. It is not something that you want to be out in for sure. And you'll, when I show you these wind reports that we've got in over the past hour or so, you're going to be impressed. One thing to note, we've got a flash flood emergency going on across Tampa. No surprise. We have reported 5 inches of rain in the St. Petersburg area in 1 hour. There was already over a foot of rain that has happened in the past 24 hours. So you can just put into perspective what that means for the flooding that's ongoing across the Tampa area with this kind of setup of this rain, the purples and the deep, deep reds kind of sitting over that area. And this is likely going to continue. We're talking catastrophic flooding occurring with this rain that's working across that region. So it's not, of course, just the wind. It's not, of course, just the rain. We've also got the storm surge that we're talking about a little farther to the south. But this is going to be something that this area is going to continue to see. Here are some of the wind speeds that we've already recorded. Bradenton, 96 miles per hour, Gotti. We've got the same going for St. Petersburg. Again, that north side of that eye really is where the more substantial kind of impacts are. But still, you look a little farther to the south, Venice over 90 miles per hour. So this is exactly what we expected. Those hurricane force winds ongoing here. And this is what we're going to see here as it works across, unfortunately, the state of Florida. So even as it's over central Florida here as we get into the overnight hours, it's still going to have really aggressive winds. So we could see some of that wind destruction working across this region instead of just kind of confined to the coast. And when we usually see these storms really significantly,
you want answers? I think I'm entitled. You
that wide, so that's going to hold together. And remember, it came on shore as a Category 3. It still had a whole lot of steam in it as it made landfall. Here are some of the wind gusts we've seen in the past hour: 82 miles per hour in Tampa, even inland for Winter Haven and Orlando, over 50 miles per hour. The power outages are going to continue. We've already seen over 1 million power outages reported for the West Coast. That's going to expand here as the night goes on for folks across the middle of the state. And here's why. Notice this little red kind of circle right around the center of that system. Those are the hurricane force winds. So look, they'll work across the state. And again, the damage is what you're going to be seeing. On top of that, the flash flood risk is going to be immense with those highest amounts already totaling up. Gotti, we've got more than 6 inches in Tampa, already 2 inches in Orlando. These are saturated grounds. And all of that on top of the fact that we still have a potential to see some of those tornadoes coming in on those outer bands as it works across the state.
Angie Lastman, thanks so much for keeping an eye on all of that. 6.75 in Tampa so far. It's incredible. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Sam Brock, who is in Fort Myers, a little bit south right now. Sam, what are you seeing on the ground right now? And are we starting to see an escalation in the storm surge?
A material change in just the last hour, Gotti. To situate this for you, I'm in a parking garage so that we're safe in Fort Myers on the 4th or 5th floor. Sound structure. We have a bird's eye view from up here, and if you look down, this is downtown Fort Myers. I would say, at least at last check, when I walked down there, a couple of feet of water have just flooded the streets here. It's coming from the nearby river, the Caloosahatchee River, which was basically at ground level a couple of hours ago when we were live for nightly news. And within that 2-hour span, it's coming in from every which direction. And I know from our vantage point, again, for safety, you're not going to be able to see all of this, but you, I'm sure, see all of the pooling within this street. There's a parking garage sort of catty-corner from where we are right now, and I'm looking at the water levels reach about the 2nd or 3rd step and continue to rise. I just see someone kind of checking out and walking back into the parking garage, probably have the same idea that we do, which is to say there is definite storm surge here. And, you know, you're hearing these reports of major flood stage situations in places like Punta Gorda, in Naples, which is about 25 or 30 minutes south of where I am, certainly north. I know you were just talking with Angie about Tampa and Sarasota, although initially Tampa had that weird anti-surge situation going on. But now a lot of these cities, and you feel the wind coming in, gusts that are pretty close to, I would say, hurricane strength if they aren't. Listen to that. That's the palm trees just swaying back and forth, physically being moved. You're just seeing flooding, and I can't even imagine what we're going to be looking at tomorrow morning. We were just talking about, like, we hope we can get out of this garage, because right now it's a couple of feet and just climbing. High tide is 8:15 tomorrow morning. So we are 70 miles away from Sarasota. The lights are flickering on and off right now. I'm sure you just saw in the background. Things go dark. Look at this whole street. Look at this. Okay, all of the street lights
we just saw
are now
that
simmering and
right
going
behind
out.
you.
No power.
Right behind you. We saw a big transformer blow. We saw the lightning hit, and then all of a sudden it is pitch black behind you.
And there it goes.
This is
Back on again.
downtown Fort Myers. Wow, that's incredible. What are the biggest concerns in Fort Myers? I know that there was a little bit of a wobble here with this hurricane. It kind of started to dip south, so the trajectory was a little bit different than what people expected. What are the biggest concerns right now in Fort Myers?
Storm surge. Now, as it pertains to Fort Myers specifically, and a number of the other counties, like Lee County, as of about an hour or two ago, still had deputies in the streets. I would doubt that's the case now. Many of these other localities do not want to put first responders in harm's way by going out to try to rescue people who chose not to evacuate in the middle of a storm. Once you get to about 45 miles an hour or greater on sustained winds, they're just not going to do it. So that's point A. Point B, we're in downtown Fort Myers, and I think this is definitely worthy of clarification. Fort Myers is coastal in a sense. You know, we're not far from the Gulf, but you got to go all the way about another 8 or 10 miles to get to those barrier islands. This is all in an evacuation zone we would not be able to access. Barrier islands like Fort Myers Beach, where the catastrophe happened with Hurricane Ian a couple of years ago. Sanibel Island, you know, Matlacha Island, Pine Island. And they have these thin little causeways and bridges that are not like the sturdiest things you've ever seen. And so during Ian, they ruptured. People couldn't get on and off of some of the islands. The death toll for Ian, and I'm using that as a reference point here, was 150 people, give or take, 70 in this county. So once you start talking about storm surge getting up there 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 feet, loss of life is obviously your biggest concern. I believe, and it certainly seems for all appearances, that enough people evacuated that you had a lot of people get out that could have potentially drowned. But we heard that the shelters, and you can again feel this wind really kicking up, the shelters had about 100,000 people across the state, according to DeSantis and the Department of Emergency Management when they briefed a little while ago. Earlier it was like 30,000. Now they're reporting 100,000. It's true in Lee County where I am as well. Start of the day at 1,600, 7,000 people in shelters here.
Very telling there. Sam Brock, stay safe, and we'll be checking back with you in just a little bit. Let's go back to Tom Yamas in Sarasota. Tom, I can't even describe what you and your team just went through. I mean, we were watching your shot. Everything was so calm, eerily calm. And then all of a sudden, I thought this was like playback or something. I could not believe that this was happening live because it happened so quickly. What was it like on your side of the woods?
Hold on, Gotti. Power's just going out over here on the island of just off Sarasota. I'm looking out over here. You can see all these hotels and condos have just lost their power. It may fire back up again once their generators kick on, but this just happened. You see it right there.
Wow.
Listen, Gotti, this is the craziest part of this hurricane right now. Like I said, after that eye pass, Bill Cairns told me, he said, get ready for it. And you're right, it was incredibly calm. And then I'd say within minutes, it got incredibly dangerous. We were reporting, I think we have the clip there, and I was just basically saying how the situation was growing dire. We were watching that storm surge come in, and then a transformer, I think, exploded over our head, and that's when I realized it was getting too dangerous. We brought the entire team back. We're completely fine. We're surrounded by concrete here. We're high up. I do want to show you the storm surge. Here's the clip right now. Sarasota is starting to turn dire. At first, we had, okay, we're going to go. We got to go. We got to go. We got to go.
Wow, that is a live look
we
right
didn't want to
now.
take any chances there. Okay, we just want to move inside. Yeah, we didn't want to take any chances at that point, Gotti. It obviously turned very fast. And I got to tell you, there were a lot of cars, there were a lot of people that were out, you know, trying to see what the hurricane felt like and looked like because we were in the eye. And again, it was within minutes, it completely changed. This storm surge is coming in so fast. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this. I've covered a lot of hurricanes. This has definitely been the strongest one I've covered this season so far. But look at that. I don't know if you can tell because it's so dark, but that's a garage, Gotti, and the first floor of the garage is almost completely inundated. What you're seeing there is the wall of the first floor, and that water is rising. This has come up, I'd say, in the last hour, and it's not stopping. The wind is ripping through here right now. I'm sure our weather unit knows how fast it's coming. I'm glad we're inside now, protected by this concrete high up. But you can see how it's ripping these oak trees and how it's ripping the palm trees. We're starting to see projectiles, nothing too serious, but branches, any kind of debris, garbage that was left over, it's all flying around. The power is out in Sarasota, and this is the brunt of Hurricane Milton. This is what Hurricane Milton was all about. That eye, it is so deceiving because it makes people think, oh, it's over, it's not that bad, there was too much hype, and then the backside of that hurricane hits you, and this is what it is right now. We experienced it up close, and I got to tell you again, Gotti, it was just within minutes that thing's nailed us. There's things that are starting to fly off. There are things that are starting to fly off the roof of some of these hotels,
and these condos, I think they're air conditioning. They're kind of like the air conditioning fans at the top of some units, and we're seeing those fly around as well. It speaks to the gravity of the situation here in Sarasota. I really hope those people that were out in their pickup trucks doing donuts during the eye are back in a safe spot, because this is getting wild. The flooding has begun. The storm surge is here, and it's getting absolutely wild. I think we're going to go to Tampa right now. I'm not sure who we have there live. This is a fluid situation. We have Stephanie Gosk, who's live in Tampa. Stephanie, we just got whipped with the back end of the hurricane. I got to tell you, it's the real deal. What are you guys feeling there in Tampa?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we are getting the brunt of it here as well, Tom. Ferocious winds in the last hour. And just to give you an idea, I was standing up on a box for a moment, and a gust came through and basically almost knocked me off of where I was standing. And I'm in an area that's protected. So the winds, 70, 80, 90, even 100-mile-an-hour gusts that we're getting right now in Tampa. And, you know, you've been talking a lot this week about Hurricane Helene and the effect that it had on this area. That was a water event. What we are getting now with Hurricane Milton is both water and it is wind. And when we talk about the water, we're not going to get the surge here in Tampa Bay that they were so worried about, the catastrophic surge. But what you are getting is an unbelievable amount of rain, Tom. There's a period right now, and it's going to stretch for the next 2 or 3 hours, where we are getting upwards of 2 to 3 inches of rain an hour. And that on top of everything that we've been getting all day long, and it really has been raining steadily and at times very hard here. So that's upwards of a foot of rain. On top of this wind, it is really unclear what people are going to wake up to in Tampa in terms of damage, Tom.
And I know you said it's a wind event right now in Tampa, and the storm surge may not be an issue. Are you seeing any type of flooding at all right now? Are you feeling any type of storm surge? Or are you guys further inland and you can't really see it at this point?
We are not on the bay specifically. We are about a mile away, but there are a couple of bodies of water around us. There was what was a small, what I would call pond earlier that looks more like a lake, and there was also a canal that is now much, much higher. So those water levels are certainly rising. The streets have water covering them, although I wouldn't say it was flooding. It's probably likely because the water is just landing so quickly and not draining yet. But you have to imagine that at some point it just becomes oversaturated. We are getting flash flood warnings, for those repeated loud sirens on our phones saying that it is a life-threatening flash flood situation here in Tampa, where our equipment is actually getting blown over now by some of these gusts of wind, even though we're standing in a place that has walls on 2 or 3 sides right now, Tom.
All right, Stephanie Gosk, you and your team, please stay safe. The situation is getting pretty dangerous here in Sarasota. There's debris. Look, George, shoot this over here. You see debris. This is basically some type of vinyl siding that's been ripped off. Looked like it was a portico by these tennis courts here, and now it's just getting tossed around in the wind. Jesse Kirsch is just below us as transformers are exploding around us. Jesse, you're literally one level below us in the same protected structure. This just got really wild. This is way more intense than what we experienced during Helene.
Hey, Tom. Yep, Tom, I'm going to have David pan over here because that piece of siding, we're going to watch it for our own safety as well. It is skidding across the top there, and if that blows our way, Tom, that's a real problem. So just bear with us. I know you guys are going to be watching this too. It's flying. Oh, my God, that piece of, did you see that, Tom? That is unbelievable. That is a huge piece of metal siding flying in the air right now, and we're going to... Okay, look at it. It's pinned to the side of that garage. And I can tell you, Tom, before the lights went out down there, that the first floor of that parking garage is filled with water. There was a trash can floating in there. And I've been watching the water level on this ramp below us keeps on rising. This is why we are elevated. This is what storm surge can do. And we're just seeing it going up slowly over here. If someone is out on the Barrier Island area as this crashed in, there is no time in some cases to be racing to a higher level, and it may go so high that you don't even have a chance. And this is why officials have been pleading for evacuations. Tom, I have to tell you, we're less than 2 weeks since Helene made landfall, and we now know from the county they have close to, at last check, close to 10,000 people in county shelters here in Sarasota. The county says that is the highest volume of people they have ever had come to a shelter in the history of their evacuations. That echoes what we've been hearing on the ground here from people. Helene changed their perspective on these storms. It was the hardest hit, the mayor told me, compared to others that they've had in this community. And hopefully that inspired more people to get out early enough, because we are now seeing how powerful these winds are gusting. All this rain whipping around, you would not have a chance to be driving through this safely. We know the police are off the roads, and with all that debris out there, this is not a time to be outside, Tom.
Yeah, no, Jesse, I'm thinking about those cars we saw driving the wrong way towards the barrier islands during the eye of the storm. I hope those cars were able to turn back around and get out. My photographer, George Puhol here is going to move in a little bit so we can keep an eye on some of the debris flying. But I also want to show our viewers the storm surge that you and I are experiencing right now. George, if you can even come a little lower here. We're above sea level at the compound where we're staying here, this hotel and parking garage. And if you pan a little left, you can see that's where the driveway is. Most of the driveway right now is underwater as the water is rising. Jesse, what's that? Say that again.
Well, no, yeah, my hat's gone, Tom. I mean, a moment of levity, but at this point, you know, the winds are so powerful, I didn't even have a chance to catch up with that thing to hold it down. So that is what we're dealing with right now. The winds are really thrusting, and obviously, we're in the garage for our safety, right? We've got these walls that can keep us grounded and protected in a way that we wouldn't normally think about because of the concern about all that debris that's out there, Tom. And all of that potentially, I think, might be funneling the wind through here in a way to make it, you know, flying past us more quickly. But we're looking in all directions. We've got our team's eyes in every direction up here because we do not know what is out there. And we heard, I mean, the sound of that debris skidding across that blacktop over there really was chilling, Tom.
You know, Jesse, it's interesting. I'm looking at these palm trees that are just behind us, right? They would be to your left if you're looking at the camera. They're getting absolutely shredded right now. And these palm trees are so interesting. You know, they survive these storms because they're perfectly round and their roots get stronger as they bend. But the tops of them, those palm fronds, are completely getting shredded. And it takes a lot of hurricane wind. I'm going to ask George to back up a little bit because we're getting some debris that's kind of flying a little too close for comfort here. Most of it's leaves and stuff like that, but I'm just looking out for people, as you are, Jesse, too. The thing that I can't get over, though, is the storm surge. It is moving fast. It's almost taken over the first floor completely, the first story of that parking garage. And we're just getting started here, right? We've had another 1, 2, 3 hours of this type of intensity.
Yeah, and again, Tom, going back to the palm trees for a moment, those are not light, feathery leaves. Those are pretty sturdy and essentially like giant pieces of plywood. And in fact, in Hurricane Helene, when that was making landfall, a tiny piece of debris from one appeared to have hit me, and that actually sent our team back inside to safety. And I can tell you, you know, it's not like getting hit with a leaf off of a typical tree. So the fact that those things are being snapped off and just shredded like you were describing just speaks to the ferocity of this wind. That is not an easy lift.
Jesse, I'm showing the viewers now where we are so they understand that we can stay safe while we report on this massive hurricane that is hitting Sarasota right now. These are concrete walls. We are surrounded by concrete. We're high up. We have cars that are protecting us from the wind shear. I do want to show you another angle of the storm surge here. I'm going to ask our photographer, George, to come down. And George, just point that camera down if you can. You can see the stop sign down there. Hopefully, that stop sign is already halfway covered in water. You can see it right there. And you can actually see the waves. That current is the storm surge that's coming in right now off the bay. And it's coming inland to Sarasota. The interesting thing that we were seeing when we were down there before we had to pull out because it was too dangerous was that the storm surge felt like it was coming from every angle. You were seeing water come in from different avenues, from different streets in different directions, which essentially gives you the sign. It tells you that you're being surrounded by water. It's another reason why we had to come up here. But I got to tell you, the water is rising, I'd say inches in seconds, which is why it's so dangerous. When they talk about that wall of water, it is the truth. We're seeing it in real time here in Sarasota, Jesse.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. And, you know, we only have eyes on 3 sides of this because of the safety element you were just talking about, right? Over here, we know there's water. We know there's water off on this side street to the right, and then on the main road behind us, on the other side of our cameras for our viewers, we know there's water over there too. But I'm wondering about the main drag heading over by the marina, because I can tell you, before landfall, in the last couple days, we saw a boat that was partially submerged in the marina area from the aftermath of Helene. And again, this storm was expected to bring twice as much storm surge and we are looking at really powerful winds. And so I'm really curious to know what that looks like. And obviously, when it is safe enough, when it is light enough, we will get an idea of the damage over there. But there are a lot of boats out in the water, Tom, not to mention the vehicles that we have been seeing on the roads and the people who we've heard shouting during that moment of calm during the eye.
You know, I lived through Hurricane Andrew. I was about 12, 13 years old when Andrew hit Miami back in 1992. And it changed the building codes all over Florida, right? People realize the power of a hurricane, especially a direct hit. What happens if windows break and wind gets in, it can lift off roofs. So our viewers seen all these giant skyscrapers, all these big buildings in Sarasota. They may be wondering how these things survive. They usually have storm impact windows, right? Those windows are very, very strong. They usually can withstand winds up to 165 miles per hour. What they can't withstand sometimes are projectiles. I mean, they are high impact, but you got to be really, really careful. Luckily, we don't see anything flying in the air that high right now. What I am noticing in those buildings, though, the power is out. There is no power. What's up is generator power, and it's just emergency lights at this point. We're up and we're running with lights, but we're on battery right now, and that's the way we're able to broadcast to you live. I understand we have a storm chaser in Daytona who's been following the storm for us as well. Daytona's far from us. It's on the east coast of Florida. But the storm is so big that everyone in Florida is experiencing something. What are you seeing there in Daytona? All right, we lost our storm chaser. It's okay. It's going to happen in a live situation. I'm going to stick with Jesse right now because the story seems to be right here in Sarasota. Jesse, you were here a couple of days longer than I was, covering what was going on here. You saw some of those debris piles, you told me, further inland. It felt like people got out of Sarasota. We were seeing businesses boarded up. Is that the sense you got? And were they able to tackle those debris piles? Or was it sort of too much and not enough time like it was in Tampa?
Yeah, I think, Tom, that it was too much. We know from the governor that he said they were working 24/7, but he also says they only got 50% off the barrier islands. Wow, that's a really strong gust. I can hear it through your mic, and we just got the wind shifted directions and got a rush of water to the face. There's definitely still a lot of debris out there. The mayor had told me yesterday that well before landfall, they had stopped collecting debris, and there were still piles as I was walking with her in a ghost town, effectively, street out on the barrier island. I also can tell you, Tom, I know you are no stranger to covering these either. Oh, man, that's really rushing through. When we come to town, right, we stock up like everyone else. Food, gas, non-perishable food, gas, water, gas cans, so we can have extra fuel on hand. And I got to tell you, Tom, it felt like those things were harder to find earlier this time around. And that echoes what I heard from the mayor, what we get the sense from in these communities, is that people are on edge in a way they aren't typically because of what Helene did in this community already. Again, I saw a waist-high watermark in a home, not too far from where I am right now, on a barrier island just up the road. And that was from the last storm. This one is supposed to be more ferocious, and you got to hope that more people are taking it seriously. And from what we're hearing from officials, that seems to be the case, Tom.
All right, Jesse Kirsch. Jesse, you and your team stay safe. I know you're close by. I want to go to Chase Kane right now. He's our national climate reporter. A tornado, I'm being told, has just touched down in Daytona. That's where Chase is right now. Chase, what do you know?
Gotti, cannot confirm that this is a tornado, but I've been taking a look at the live radar, and there is definitely rotation in this storm. That's why we are well inside the loading dock of our hotel here. We have a safe place that we can take cover, but you can probably see here behind me just how strong these winds are. So we have that combination of both the sustained tropical storm force winds with the rotation in these storms that we've been talking about all afternoon. The National Weather Service office in Miami set a record for the most tornado warnings issued in one day today. As of last check earlier, we had well over a dozen confirmed tornadoes. I mean, you can see what the trees are doing here. Even the gate next to this loading dock here. The vehicle that just drove by is a Volusia County sheriff. The only vehicles that we've seen lately are official vehicles because there is a mandatory curfew. There's a mandatory evacuation order in place for this area where we are in Daytona Beach. I mean, would be tough to guess how strong these winds are, but it's been pretty ferocious here over the last, certainly over the last half hour or so, Gotti.
All right, Chase, it's Tom Yamas you're talking to here, but I know you're new with us, so that's all good. Please stay safe where you are in Daytona. We're going to check back with you a little later. George, I'm going to bring our photographer, photojournalist George Pujols back over here because I want to show how much the storm surge is growing here. I'd say it's climbing inches. Every minute or so, it gets more. And this is what they were afraid of here, right? It was a historic storm surge, a storm surge like they had never seen before. It's just getting started. We still have, I'd say, 1 or 2 hours of this intense weather. Our meteorologists will be able to give us a better sense of that. It's also such a big storm that there are different parts of the state being affected, including Orlando. I know we have Charles Salazar, who's live for us to help us out in our live coverage there. Charles, talk to us about what you're seeing in Orlando and what your big concerns are tonight.
All righty. First of all, thank you for having me here tonight, and thank you for the work that you guys do out there reporting the news, because that's really important to everybody. So in Orlando, we've witnessed quite a bit of rain, some rain bands that came through here. We're really concerned about flooding, and so now the winds are starting to pick up. I think right now they're sustained at 30. You know, our rescue crews are going to be out there. They're going to be ready, but when the winds get to sustain 40 to 45, which we're expecting, then we have to pause operations and wait for that to stop before we can continue those operations. But, you know, we're concerned with falling trees. What we learned through Hurricane Ian, we learned that this could be a potential heavily flooded city. And so what we did this time is we pre-positioned our rescue boat assets throughout the city in those areas that flooded previously. So we're going to be ready for that. We are aware that there has been many tornadoes, and we're prepared for that. We've had tornado warnings here, nothing confirmed. But the men and women of the Orlando Fire Department, they're ready. They've been preparing for several days. They performed really well during Hurricane Ian, and we're ready to perform for this storm as well.
Charles Salazar from Orlando. Charles, we appreciate all that you're doing over there. Please stay safe tonight. Our continuing coverage live from Sarasota will continue right now. We are live in Sarasota as Hurricane Milton is striking this area. Stay with us. Okay, guys, what's the plan? Okay. Right. Okay, we're live right now from Sarasota, our continuing coverage of Hurricane Milton. You are watching as the storm has already made landfall. This is the backside of the hurricane, the most powerful part of the hurricane, slamming into Sarasota right now. It made landfall just a bit north of us in Cedar Key, south of Tampa. That was somewhat a good news for Tampa because they were worried about the storm surge if it hit north of there. But right now, unfortunately, it's bad news for Sarasota, feeling the brunt of Hurricane Milton, and we're seeing that storm surge happen as we come to you live right now. The wind just ripping completely the palm trees, power outages everywhere. We are experiencing transformers explode, and we're seeing trees be ripped apart in real time right now. We still have a team of reporters that are fanned out across the state of Florida as the wind is really picking up here. I'm going to have George back up a little bit so he can get into a safer position as we set up here. If you're just joining our coverage, we are in a safe spot here. We're in a concrete garage on the 5th floor. There's no chance that the storm surge is going to get us. We are protected from the wind, but it is an intense scene right here, and one that we saw firsthand. We were in the middle of the eye, maybe about 30, 45 minutes ago, and the eye was just passing us, and within minutes, the situation got incredibly precarious. A transformer exploded over our heads. We had to run out with our crew because at that point we realized we should be back inside. But that's how quickly the storm can turn on you. It can go from very calm when you're in the eye to the backside of the hurricane, which is happening right now. Again, as I mentioned, we have a team of reporters live tonight in Sarasota, in Tampa, in Fort Myers, all over the state of Florida, covering Hurricane Milton as it's made landfall, and it's now cutting across what we call the I-4 corridor. I'm going to ask our controlman to tell me one more time who we have next, who's coming up here. Okay, we have Angie, one of our meteorologists, who's going to walk us through what's happening. Angie, talk to us about what's happening right now where we are in Sarasota.
Yeah, so Tom, you mentioned you went through the eye wall and you really saw the worst of it ramping up at a quick pace as expected. And on the backside of that eye wall, you see things wrapping around, and you can tell by some of the returns on here just how aggressive this rain, the wind is where you are right now. And that's only going to get worse here for the next maybe 30 to 45 minutes or so, and then we'll start to see things kind of tapering off a bit. Of course, you're not out of the woods. You're still going to deal with what's left to come for Milton here as it works more inland. But we've got some other things unfolding. Where Tom is right now, that's where we're really concerned about, of course, the wind and the rain, but the storm surge essentially from that point south, it is a tale of kind of two impacts. The storm surge for folks on that coastal region, and then we've got the really heavy rain, flash flood emergency ongoing across Tampa, and we've got, of course, the potential for those damaging, destructive winds with that eye wall working through these regions. So here's some of the rain that we're seeing right now. Notice the purple, the pinks, the reds. That is the extremely torrential rain falling in that region. We've seen multiple inches in just a span of an hour. In some spots, last hour, it was over 5 inches over that region. So no surprise that we've got this flash flood emergency ongoing. But look how expansive those flash flood warnings are across this region. This is the area on the north side of that system that we're really concerned about the heavy rainfall. And it stretches across the state because it is going to remain north side loaded with the heaviest of the rain and the strongest of the winds. So as it works across the state, we'll watch that. This is going to go until 2:30 in the morning. I am concerned for what it must be like in this area right now, to be perfectly honest, when it comes to the flash flooding that they're likely seeing from Bradenton to Ruskin, Tampa, Clearwater, St. Petersburg. But they are not getting the storm surge. That, of course, is points south of there. And you can see that backside circulation starting to work in. So we've already had reports 4 feet, 5 feet in places like Fort Myers, Naples. So that means we don't really have a whole lot of gauges in between there. We're going to have to wait and see with first light what kind of unfolds when it comes to the storm surge for that region from Sarasota down to Fort Myers. But we likely will see that storm surge forecast from the National Hurricane Center verify if we're already at the point that we're at of 4, 5, 6 feet in some of these places that are farther away from where the center of that circulation is, and those onshore winds are continuing. So we're likely talking about much higher amounts closer to that system, of course. So we'll have to wait and see exactly how that plays out. No surprise, we've got a reverse storm surge happening in Tampa Bay. They've, of course, escaped the worst of it when it comes to the storm surge, but you saw the rainfall amounts, and you're about to see some of those wind reports that we've seen that have just been downright impressive as that system moves ashore. So that is what they're going to be dealing with when it comes to destruction and damage here through at least the next couple of hours. There's where we're, again, expecting the worst of that storm surge. 9 to 13 feet likely will verify. We'll see possibly the 8 to 12 feet verify as well, especially when you're talking about the Cape Coral area, the mouth of that bay. We saw it with Ian. We saw the destruction when it came to the storm surge, and it's not hard for flooding to occur in that area. And this likely is going to be several miles inland for that region as we get closer to high tide time. Here's the winds that I was talking about. Over 90 miles per hour in a lot of spots. Bradenton, St. Petersburg, North Palm Beach, Venice, Sarasota, all over 90 miles per hour. This is what we mean when we're talking about getting in that northerly part of that eye wall, and it's ongoing. The system well inland, 84-mile-per-hour winds for Tampa and St. Petersburg. This hour, we've got Winter Haven up to 71 miles per hour. So the power outages are just going to keep falling here as this system works across the state. We've already got more than 1 million in the central Florida and parts of the Space Coast. Will start to add to that, and this likely will be a good chunk of the state dealing with power outages with how expansive these tropical storm force winds are, but especially these hurricane force winds that extend well out from the center of that system. Now,
el huracán Milton. Vamos a ver si busco entonces material de reporte de lo que ha causado Milton en Sarasota. Se ha hecho difícil porque se ha perdido el sistema eléctrico en toda esa zona y no hemos podido. Una cámara que se tenía allí no está funcionando, quizás por los vientos, quizás por la luz eléctrica, no lo sabemos. Vamos entonces a seguir continuando llevando la información de este huracán. Los dejo entonces con las imágenes de Mike, Alex y Frank, que están recorriendo toda esa zona del paso del huracán Milton.
¿Y cuáles son esos objetos livianos? Pues esos escombros que no se han podido quitar de las calles a tiempo tras el paso de Helene la semana pasada. Esa es una de las grandes preocupaciones de cara a las próximas horas. ¿Cómo estarán, no, todos esos escombros que la gente fue depositando delante de sus casas? Aparte del viento y de la lluvia, la marejada de tormenta afortunadamente no se ha metido hacia la bahía de Tampa, ya que este huracán ha tocado tierra a las 8:30 y lo ha hecho en la zona de Cayo Siesta, muy cerca de Venice, al sur de Sarasota. Eso ha hecho que los vientos acá en la bahía de Tampa hayan sido de tierra hacia el mar, de modo que en vez de subir la marea, esta se ha ido retirando. Y en cambio, sí que por Manatí hemos visto una crecida de un pie, pero en líneas generales ese no ha sido el mayor problema para la zona costera. En cambio, la lluvia, esta sí que nos está dando un dolor de cabeza.
So this is our Flippy 3, Flippy.
La zona de Clearwater, San Petersburg, más de un pie de agua, lo que ha obligado incluso a cerrar 2 estaciones de potabilización. Los apagones también van a más, incluso estando aquí hemos visto a ratos como las luces de este estacionamiento, del hotel, iban parpadeando, y es que estos irán aumentando conforme este huracán se mueva hacia Orlando, Kissimmee. Allí es donde tendremos la mirada puesta durante las próximas 5 horas, a lo largo de ese corredor de la Interestatal 4 entre Tampa y la costa del Atlántico, Daytona Beach, Cabo Cañaveral, porque la mayor cantidad de lluvia caerá sobre esa carretera Interestatal 4 y hacia el norte, donde el riesgo de inundaciones seguirá muy alto. Además, durante la tarde hemos visto más de 100 avisos por tornado, algo habitual cuando un huracán llega a tierra. Algunos de ellos están alejados del centro de este sistema, como ha sido por Lauderdale, en el sur de la Florida. Y es que los vientos, estos huracanados, se extienden a prácticamente 100 millas del centro de la tormenta. Los vientos de tormenta tropical se llegan a sentir a más de 200 millas del centro del huracán. Así que un huracán que va perdiendo intensidad, es categoría 2, llegará a categoría 1, pero aunque vaya perdiendo intensidad, no podemos bajar la guardia. Sigue siendo muy peligroso estar en la calle, y nosotros que estamos aquí para transmitir la información siempre lo hacemos con todas las medidas de seguridad que uno puede tomar.
Albert, acabo de ver movimiento de un vehículo justo a tu espalda. No sé si lo pudiste notar y me llama la atención, no sé si es un equipo que está trabajando también la cobertura del huracán o es que hay residentes que están tratando de aventurar en medio de esta tormenta.
No, son equipos de televisión. De hecho, somos los únicos que tenemos el permiso para estar fuera del hotel donde nos hospedamos aquí en el aeropuerto. El hotel está en lockdown, está todo el mundo dentro del edificio porque se activó un aviso por vientos muy intensos, y es como si hubiera un aviso por tornado, que eso es lo que estáis experimentando, y los únicos que podemos estar alrededor del hotel en diferentes posiciones somos diferentes equipos de televisión, algunos nacionales, pero incluso desde Dinamarca. Estábamos hace un rato hablando con una reportera que se desplazó desde Washington como corresponsal acá a Florida para cubrir para Europa la llegada de este huracán.
Albert, veíamos este reporte inusual de tornados que se formaron antes del huracán. Me gustaría saber, ¿esas alertas de tornados van a continuar en las próximas horas, incluso después de que ya pase lo peor del huracán? ¿Qué se espera en cuanto a los tornados?
Sí, esos pueden seguir. Esta ráfaga sí que ha sido fuerte.
Está fuerte.
Eso sí, van a seguir durante la noche, y eso por eso es importante que la gente no salga de casa. La recomendación es que se queden en el sitio seguro que han encontrado para pasar este huracán. Las alertas van a seguir apareciendo. La parte, entre comillas, positiva es que ya lo que queda al sur del lago Okeechobee ya no va a haber más avisos por tornado, pero lo que siga a lo largo de la carretera 4 entre Tampa y la zona de Cabo Cañaveral y hacia el norte sí que podremos tener más avisos de tornado. Cuanto más al sur, cada vez menos probables, porque las bandas de este huracán ya no son capaces de generarlos, pero hacia el norte sí que todavía podremos ver avisos de aquí a la madrugada de mañana. Por eso es importante estar en un sitio seguro.
Yo no sé si me estoy precipitando con esto, sé que todavía estamos cubriendo apenas este huracán que te está pasando por encima en ese momento, pero se visualizan otros fenómenos atmosféricos en los alrededores del Atlántico, hay otros por ahí, es decir, esta temporada todavía no acaba. ¿Estamos en riesgo de que algo así se repita?
Sí, tenemos a Leslie, es un sistema, un huracán que ha estado en las aguas abiertas del Atlántico, no ha afectado ninguna zona. Kirk fue una tormenta que también estuvo en el Atlántico y afectó Europa hace unos días. No podemos bajar la guardia como mínimo hasta finales de noviembre, que es cuando termina la temporada de huracanes. Lo que ocurre a finales de octubre y en noviembre es que estos ya no vienen de África. Pasa lo que hemos visto con Milton. Se forman en el Golfo de México, como mucho en el Mar Caribe o cerca de la costa atlántica de Estados Unidos, entre la Florida y la costa de Georgia. De modo que tenemos poco tiempo de reacción entre que se forman, se intensifican y tocan tierra. Eso es lo que podremos ver si se forma otro en las próximas semanas y meses.
Se nos acaba el tiempo, Albert, nos tenemos que ir a una pausa. Gracias por esa información. Por favor, cuídate mucho. Sé que eres un experto, pero cuídate. Ya venimos con más.
going. I think it's slowly going down right now. It's going. I think it's slowly. No, so far I mean it's better than we could hope. But I mean, I'm scared to say, hey, use capable words because a lot of people said that with Ian too, and then Fort Myers Beach next morning. I was like, oh my god, said that with Ian too. So. Yeah, the storm surge could have been a whole lot worse in this area. I don't want to say it's all clear by any stretch, but it does look like the water is starting to slowly come down. It's scared to say, hey, you escape the water. Very similar situation to Ian. Everybody thought this is got away with it. Next day the sun comes up and everybody's going to go fire at the beach. Hopefully there's no situations like that for a lot of beaches. These around here are probably in rough shape. Those barrier beaches are definitely going to be taken over from the wave action, the battery waves that come with the surge. That's what it's but as far as the main side of the rest of the year, things are better than expected. It doesn't mean a whole lot for people in 3 to 4 years. Most I would say about 3 to 4 feet. I try not to get more about 8. Most I would say about 3 to 4 feet. I can go deeper, but it's just hard to search deeper to see. Yeah, about 3 to 4 feet of water. About the max. But again, that's the it's a little bit very islands. So, and I haven't covered the whole coast. Like there's areas in the surge. Drastically worse. But so far it looks like really escaped alive. Or at least this area. Yeah, still seeing some hurricane force winds. Really never really got talked about some hurricane. But we did see some overnight. Of course, it's pretty came flying across the red. That's just part of the freedom of flying. Focus the surge on us and three behind us.
vive este huracán a esta hora?
Carolina, te puedo decir muy buenas noches, es impresionante. Mira, no deja de llover, las ráfagas de viento no paran aquí en Tampa. Es impresionante. Yo no sé si tú alcanzas a escuchar esos rugidos del viento potente de este huracán Milton, que como hemos dicho, pues va a ser historia porque rompió muchos récords. Y mira aquí, o sea, es impresionante, Carolina, cómo nosotros podemos escuchar el viento, podemos ver al huracán Milton, podemos ver esto que está ocasionando. Hemos escuchado varios transformadores que han estallado producto de estos fuertes vientos, y además el ruido que se oye en la calle supone uno que son de esas señales que salen volando por estas ráfagas potentes del huracán Milton, que bueno, no sabemos qué nos va a dejar, ¿no? Una vez amanezca y durante el día podamos ver ya el balance de lo que dejó este huracán, que fue esperado, fue analizado por los meteorólogos, por los científicos, de por qué, por ejemplo, en tan poco tiempo aquí en esta zona del país, en la costa oeste, por ejemplo, golpearon dos huracanes muy potentes que no le dieron ni siquiera el tiempo a las personas para reponerse de la llegada de un huracán, el huracán Helene. Menos de 2 semanas después viene este potente huracán y vamos a ver qué deja. Sí sabemos que está dejando mucha lluvia, muchas pulgadas de lluvia, eso va a dejar inundaciones, y vamos a ver qué nos deja la marejada ciclónica, porque si se cumplen los pronósticos de los meteorólogos estaríamos hablando de una marejada ciclónica de 15 pies de alto. De 15 pies de alto aquí, por ejemplo, en Tampa, en una bahía que una vez crece el mar, no tiene por dónde salir. Y esos son los peligros. Esas inundaciones, más las inundaciones que se pueden ser generadas por estas lluvias incesantes, Carolina, es que no ha parado de llover. Es impresionante, y además esto combinado con los vientos, realmente es la cara de Milton, es cómo se ve Milton, cómo se siente, cómo lo vemos, cómo lo palpamos, lo percibimos. Finalmente lo conocemos personalmente, Carolina. Y mañana también vamos a ver la otra cara de Milton, que es lo que deja este huracán, porque realmente lo que dejan estos fenómenos naturales se conocen al día siguiente, ya cuando se empiezan a evaluar los daños que ha dejado por su paso, porque no solo es por donde entra el ojo, sino además por donde cruza,
lo peor muchas veces es
tierra,
después.
pues todavía sigue siendo huracán.
Lo peor muchas veces es después de que pasa la tormenta, Vilma. Muchísimas gracias.
I'm going to take a moment and share with you the #1 Medicare mistake that people often make when they're ready to start Medicare. Here's a hint. It's not missing out on a free plan with all kinds of free perks that you see advertised on TV. Instead, the mistake is rushing into the decision without any real education and choosing the first plan that sounds good. To help people avoid making this mistake, we created a free Medicare Essentials workshop that teaches you everything that you need to know about Medicare. So go to MedicareSchool.com and watch the free workshop right now.
Would you buy a gym membership in one place and rent lockers in another? So why buy WordPress hosting in one place and a website builder in another? Elementor hosting makes sense.